So a lot of hiyo pesa itakuja hapa Spice.
Campaign,
Usipige kelele sana.
awareness, media, communication.
Mimi lazima nipige kelele.
Spice kama wanatupatia sisi wanatupatia 500 million
Then
ni
tutanyamaza.
sawa. Without that.
Do.
Just the situation alone.
Rebranding 2.7 billion.
Communication budget, awareness, media. Then they have to do
have to
the
do
events.
roadshows
They have to do
roadshows everywhere.
Do.
Then they have to change the whatever they have to pay.
Then all the collateral has to change.
Graphic designer to change.
Do.
All your documentation must change.
Do.
All the
Times Tower must now look different.
Abba, CT. Then on top of we have to have an event and we must cook chicken. Sure. What's wrong with you?
2.7 billion though.
Don't want to eat chicken. Won't you go if they invite you?
2.7 billion.
CT, why?
Do they know that the Prime Cabinet Secretary net worth is 3 billion? As in they were just
want to spend his net worth.
Hapana bwana. No.
CT has brought out his calculator.
Kerry.
Where? CT, 2.7 billion cannot contain your calculator. Should I read the story
You
for
continue.
Let me read the story for you. You think you are vexed? Vexed.
Read the story, yes.
Proposed reforms at the Kenya Revenue Authority will cost the taxpayer 2.7 billion shillings, according to estimates presented to the National Assembly. KRA's Acting Commissioner for Corporate Services, Support Services, Ms. Nancy Ngetich, while presenting the agency's estimates for the 2023-2024 financial year before the Finance and National Planning Committee, said the rebranding to Kenya Revenue Service is aimed at increasing revenue mobilization and being a service-oriented organization. Ngetich told the committee chaired by Mola MP Kuria Kimani that the rebranding project will be implemented in 2 phases over the next 6 years, with each phase expected to cost 1.34 billion shillings.
6 years.
At the end of 6 years, they would have spent
Okay.
this money.
Okay. Divide 2.7 billion by 6. The first phase is costing how much?
1.34.
That is first phase. Is it? I'm assuming the phases are equal.
Yes.
2 equal phases.
2 equal phases.
So 1.35 for 3 years.
Yeah. The KRA rebranding project.
It is still a lot of money.
600 million per year.
Believe me,
It's still a lot
it is
of money.
still a lot of money.
600 million per year. You see, the rebrand is not just that. It's, reorganizing the entire service.
Everything has to change. You can imagine letterheads, cards.
Let me ask you this simple
There's also
question.
a culture
Why
change.
is there a need to even change the name in the first place?
Did you hear what Ngetich said? She
Authority.
said we have to change the perception in the public from being an authority
To a
Can that
service-oriented
lady
organization.
please say something that makes sense? Because we had the police service being called the police service, nothing changed. They even gave them uniform that we last saw nurses wearing. It didn't change anything. From which blue to it didn't change. It
From
doesn't
baby blue
change
to royal blue.
anything. The
See,
functions of
the
KRA.
police reforms failed. Okay.
No, it's not reforms.
Police reforms failed. It came from police force to police service.
Did anything
and all
change?
those things. Police reforms failed. It doesn't mean that everything else that tries to be reformed is going to fail. We at the Kenya Revenue Authority have a better plan and a better strategy. All right?
Eric,
Ours will
Kenya
work.
Revenue
ours will
Authority's
work.
function will not change because you've decided to rebrand them.
Our engagement with the people will be different. We are changing our
seen.
it's not
Eric,
just changing the
Eric,
look and feel
Kenya
and the
Revenue
name.
Authority.
It's a culture inside.
Nope.
Our culture
No.
inside is going to change.
And that's why
Kenya
we
will
will
make
over the next
Revenue
6
Authority.
years.
We will be more approachable.
6
They
years
are
we will
already
make
more
it work.
approachable they've been.
Now
Kenya
can you
Revenue
imagine-
Authority
now can you
have
imagine
been
being more
working
approachable?
very studiously to change their image, perception, and to be user-friendly. We have witnessed it ourselves, the attempts they have made. It didn't require rebranding for them to do that.
Have they worked?
Yes, it has.
Now they just need the final push.
No.
Now with that,
No.
with what has been happening in the background, now we want to bring it to the fore.
Eric, this is nonsense. We do not need to spend that amount of money to rebrand. We don't
600
even need to
million
rebrand.
in a year.
No.
And let me tell you something. Shushu, wait now.
Pesa mingi.
No.
The renaming of KRA to KRS is going to consume the figures as stated in the document we have presented to us. Now, Mr. Makilap, who is the Baringo North MP, is asking, why should it cost so much? And is it necessary? Ngetich explained that the rebranding was not just about changing the name, but transforming its systems and operations.
Yeah.
The process of renaming KRA was initiated in the 12th Parliament through the Kenya Revenue Authority Amendment Bill 2022.
Yes.
The name change is intended to rebrand the authority in order to transform its public image and thereby enhance tax compliance through improved public relations and a clear focus on the needs and rights of taxpayers.
Yes.
Those are just words.
Yeah.
However, the bill was withdrawn by then Majority Leader Amos Kimunya on the 9th of June 2022 at the committee stage after he disagreed with the amendments proposed by then predecessor Aden Duale, who is now the Defense Minister. But you see what Nyetich is saying?
We are changing
Operation.
our system internally.
Inside everything, so that as we finish, we shall present to you.
We want to make it
service,
easier for
so
you
that
to
now
comply.
by the time you're going to pay tax, you won't be seeing this three-eyed monster. You'll just be seeing people.
Let me
who
ask you
serve
something.
and then you will just roll over on your back like a puppy and say, "Take my taxes."
All right, if we change the name of the armed forces and made them armed service, will their role change?
Their role.
The
role is
role,
not
the role that they play.
Yeah.
Will the attitude towards what they're doing change because we now call them the armed service?
It is not just a name change, City. You're forgetting that.
Operations amendments.
I'm trying to tell you that everything that Nyetich is saying, KRA is already doing. Everything except changing the name.
Can you imagine? And now they were doing all those things without the proper amount of money that they needed. Now they need the money, and you will feel it.
But what they have done
and wider.
and the success they have achieved is what informs me that you don't need that money that they're talking about.
But their
It is not
perception, you know,
needed.
City, you have experienced a different KRA, and your perception has
I
changed.
have experienced different KRAs, not one.
This latest one, you've seen some change.
Yes,
right?
because I knew of the other one.
But
Yes.
no, not everybody has seen
Income
it.
tax,
Now we want
that's all.
everybody else. We want everybody else to feel the thing that City has felt.
You
Some
know,
of us see KRA as a nuisance.
KRA has changed even when we started calling it KRA over time. In the last 3 years that I've been in this studio, I have seen the changes. We've talked to people.
Like
we've
now what-
witnessed it. Okay? They have made very strong attempts to change perception,
You know
to
what
change the
City
way
is
they
saying?
work.
City is saying they've already changed.
No, they have started that process and they're doing a good job.
Change, and they've already done it so well. So all this money that they need, what are they going to do? And they've
what
already
are you
started
talking about?
changing.
But City, you keep telling us things. That was piloting. What you have been saying, you witnessed the pilot. Now we need to scale it.
We need to get this
know.
plane flying higher.
What you have said it very well, City. In fact, very good. For the last 3 years, KRA has been piloting how can we change our image. They finally found the formula. Now they want to use the formula to amplify this thing countrywide. So wherever you go, Kenya Revenue Service looks like one that wants to serve you, so that we can all build this country together. See? No. And we need 600 million shillings every year. 1.3 billion
We
in
actually
3
For
do
years.
6 years.
We actually do not, because if what you are saying is true, then it means let me forget the billions and the amount for a second. When you start a project and you tell me it needs, say, even 6 billion, at the beginning, I will understand, because you're then setting up the structures, creating it. The consequent years, you cannot need the same amount again, because the heavy lifting will have been done in the first year. You'll require less. Here we have a situation where it's a constant amount you're spending. What are you doing?
No. What they've done is, for purposes of budget, they have spread it so that it's an even
That's
number.
a story.
Okay. But in terms of how well they use the money, now the heavy lifting will happen initially.
Why don't they just tell us that they have decided to sell us snake oil?
Let me tell you about the shilling. The shilling has hit historic lows as fuel deal fails to stop the slide. A government-backed deal to import fuel on credit has failed to stop the depreciation of the Kenyan shilling against the dollar, as the local currency dropped to a fresh low of 137 bob per $1. A month after the first cargo landed in the country. When fuel imported on credit landed mid last month, it was anticipated that the government brokered deal would ease pressure on the demand for the dollar from the oil marketers and prop up the shilling. But an analysis of the exchange rate shows that the shilling shed 1.8% in the month to last Friday, which was, however, slower than the 3.9% in the month to April. A bank executive is attributing the continued drop to a pent-up demand for the dollar from sectors such as manufacturing and other importers, adding that the shilling may take at least 3 months to start feeling the impact of imported fuel on credit. So the bankers are saying, all right, yeah, it's not happening yet because there was a lot of demand in the market. A lot. Remember the other day we were talking about, and when Jege was telling us about a meeting that was taking place between CMA, NSE, brokers, and investors. Because people who are even going to sell their shares at the Nairobi Securities Exchange and they're trying to repatriate the cash, they can't. Shortage of dollars. You're being told you will get your money after like 3 weeks.
Good Lord.
Imagine. And you've sold your shares here.
Obviously, the amounts we're talking about, well in the hundreds of thousands.
Imagine. So there's still an issue with, there's a crunch for the dollar. So bankers are saying it may not. So as we are seeing, things are still happening. That's the headline in the Business Daily. There is another big story in the Business Daily today. How Kenya Re board ousted and replaced CEO in 2 minutes.
Come on.
Dakangapi?
Big.
Mbili. On March 28th, the Kenya Reinsurance Corporation board had a very short meeting. In 2 minutes, the board had settled on a chief executive replacing Jedediah Mwarania. The board, according to court documents, picked Hilary Maina Washinga as the new CEO, drafted the appointment letter, sent him the letter for perusal, and executed all these processes within 2 minutes. The process was last week cleared by the court, ending a vicious courtroom battle in the succession at the firm and a 12-year service for Mr. Jedediah Mwarania. At the heart of the battle was the interpretation of an ambiguous previous court order that Mr. Mwarania obtained to fight his ouster at the firm. The Employment and Labour Relations Court Judge Nelson Abuoda said no one was to be blamed because the court order blocking Mwarania's replacement as the CEO was ambiguous. The judge said Kenya Re's board of directors was within its right to interpret the directions of the court the way they did. Their immediate action of appointing the interest parties managing director may have been sharp, but only took advantage of the ambiguity, the judge said. Mwarania, a University of Nairobi finance graduate, had sued the state corporation for unfair dismissal, for which he was saying, pay me 82 million shillings in compensation. But what puzzled Mwarania's lawyer, Judith Userwa, the most was how the board concluded its deliberations at 2:25 p.m. and the new MD executed the letter of appointment at 2:27 p.m. Considering the manner in which the common course of natural events, human conduct and public business is conducted, this sequence of events alleged to have happened on the 28th of March were fictitious and were made and designed to defeat this application. So basically the lawyers are saying, the way this board had already settled on these things, they were just coming now to fill the paper, but they forgot to look at the time. Can't say that we met at 2:25 and the CEO has resigned at 2:27. Surely.
Not possible.
2 minutes. So that's a big headline in the Business Daily today. There are other sticker headlines. Today's proverb is from Djibouti. Dar and Djibouti ports overtake Mombasa in new World Bank ranking. They are in the World Bank's latest ranking on the most efficient ports. Ours is not doing so well, highlighting the competition fears that Kenya has had over Tanzania becoming a preferred route for shippers. KRA lays ground for fresh clampdown on tax reliefs. That's also the headline that you had read there. Yeah, some 620 billion shillings in revenue is going away in 5 years to February 2023. It's giving this perspective to the scale of foregone income for the government amid liquidity pressures. Here you have no money, and then because somebody has come to invest in the country, you've given them tax relief, going to close to a trillion bob. 620 billion is a lot of money.
Yes, it is.
It's a lot of money. City? The Star.
Yes, the Star. Top right-hand corner, Intil Green, to be charged. Sugar scandal, investigation. Police quiz businessman. There's a story of somebody who was arrested on the way from Dubai They even told us the flight that he was on. Yes, it was an Emirates flight. And they stopped him. The gentleman by the name of Waithaka. They say he was arrested, taken to the cells, and he's going to be arraigned in court today.
So what
are they arresting him for?
What's the accusation?
Involvement in this sugar scheme.
They're calling him the mastermind.
Which is what informs you that he is not the mastermind. He tells you he's the mtu wa mkono. Yeah.
Because, okay. I will read the story.
Well, let me read the story for you. It's a story on page 7 of The Star. It starts as follows. Right. Police have arrested a man they suspect to be one of the key people behind the 20,000 bags of condemned brown sugar. The sugar is not brown sugar. It was imported in 2018 but did not bear expiration labels, and the expiration date was not specified anywhere. The amount was 20,000 in 50-kilogram bags.
Now, this is what, before you even go further,
is this not?
This is the one bit that keeps confusing me about this story of sugar.
Yep.
What is the issue with the sugar? Is it contaminated or is it lack of expiration date?
You, my man, have gone to the heart of the matter. So let us continue.
Okay.
Remember, even how it came in, initially it was not in bags. That's why it was a problem.
Yes.
It was simply poured into the hull of the ship.
Yes.
They said, no. Is this sugar just being poured on? You don't know whether there was cement there before. You don't know whether there was fertilizer. Yeah. Okay? Businessman Crispus Waithaka was on Saturday night arrested at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport upon his arrival in the country from Dubai, the police said. He had arrived around 9 p.m. aboard an Emirates flight when he was intercepted by immigration officers. Now, this one also gets interesting. Waithaka was armed with an interim order for anticipatory bail on the 100,000 shillings granted by the High Court in Mombasa with a criminal miscellaneous application number. The number is long. They're dated 19th May this year.
19th May.
Last year.
Okay.
Last year.
Last year.
Last year.
No, 2023.
Sorry, 2023.
This year.
It's E067 2023. This year.
And then he was arrested on the 21st.
Yes.
But on the 19th, while in Dubai, he had signed someone to get...
And he had gotten the interim.
He had gotten the...
He had been actually prevented from traveling out of the country.
All right.
So he got an interim order that allowed him to travel when he had already traveled.
Okay.
Just so that you understand. Okay? Okay. All right. The detectives from the director... You see now again. But the detectives from the Directorate of Criminal Investigation arrested and escorted him to Kamkunji Police. So did the immigration arrest him or did the DCI arrest him? But let's go.
No, the immigration stopped him. Then the DCI came and arrested him.
Actually, immigration actually arrested him.
They did.
Immigration police. There's no police in immigration.
And
immigration officers, do they have
arresting
powers?
No, they intercepted him.
They stopped him. Then DCI came in.
Then the DCI escorted him to the Kamkunji police station.
Intercepting is basically they took his passport and zubar there with it.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's check if as they're checking.
According to the Kenya Revenue Authority records, Waithaka was one of the people who witnessed the breaking of the customs seals of the 40 containers containing the condemned sugar on April 20th.
He broke the seals.
He was among other people who witnessed the breaking of the seals.
Witnessed. Breaking of the seals.
Breaking of the seals.
When?
The others on the 20th of April. You know,
this is...
Yeah.
We're still in this year.
So this was a bonded warehouse.
It was a bonded warehouse.
And Keb's guard, because now this was Keb's property at this point.
Yes.
God. It's a theatre of the absurd here.
Investigations in the diversions of the condemned sugar have already been completed. The file has been forwarded to the office, the OPP, ahead of the planned arraignment of at least 7 people. There'll be 7 of them. Well, that's just the first.
Oh, have they found them yet?
Usually, when they mention the numbers, they found them. But they know where they are. And they're probably still negotiating to stay free. The DCI detectives have recommended that the top managers of the Kenya Bureau of Statistics and some Kenya Revenue Authority officials be charged with abuse of office, conspiracy to commit a crime, and other offences. Several officials will be charged, while some will be treated as witnesses, according to the DCI recommendation to the DPP. The detectives also recommended others to be dealt with administratively or internally. This matter is not about to become clear soon.
This is crazy, this story.
It's nonsense.
It is.
You know what?
The National Standards Council had recommended the contaminated sugar imported by Galgamesh Enterprises be converted into ethanol. Sindio?
Yeah.
Higher. They wrote to the standards regulator, and they said you submit a duly signed and legally binding contract between your organization and the distilling company, clearly outlining the sugar shall be used for manufacture of ethanol for industrial use and not for human consumption. The process of conversion will be captured through visual technology of CCTV that will be monitored on a 24-hour basis without failure. That was the letter from the National Standards Council. DCI were to provide security during transportation and during processing. The letter also directed Gilgamesh to indemnify KEBS from the activity by filling and signing the indemnity form upon being notified that it was to meet all the supervision costs. A 7-member committee was constituted to supervise the release of the consignment in compliance with the requirements. For ease of operations, the committee was split into 2 groups, one based in Mombasa, another one in Nairobi. Committee members was to establish or verify the consignment quantity and submitted records. Also mandated to supervise each container release from the storage location and delivery at the distillery, besides keeping clear inventory. So was this man a member of this committee? If he was, his story is this sugar story. There is a lot that's happening in this sugar story, and it has grabbed the headlines, and the finance bill has gotten away from out of the headlines. That's what I see here is a very confusing story.
Deliberately so.
Not a straight line. Seeing some officers invading sugar depots,
sugar
shops.
The country in 2018
Yeah,
has been in a warehouse for the last 5 years.
and then suddenly it has left,
makes
and
its
it's
way
a
out
big
in
issue.
April.
Yeah.
Then there's a big hullabaloo about who opened and who did not open and who's being arrested.
Someone
And
being
then-
arrested dramatically at the airport.
And then it
And people being
involves the
fired.
KEBS, the
And
KEBS
then they
boss.
said it is not fit for human consumption. But then somebody then had a plan to then package it and put it on the shelves.
What you'll find is that very many of the people whose names appear here are the scapegoats.
Come on, man.
The people who are genuinely behind this thing and who wanted to subvert the law and to ensure that they get their day in court and to make money from this, their names will not be mentioned
No,
here.
they won't. And then the person who's been shortchanged is the one who let out a little bit of information here and there. Because 5 years and there's not a peep out of anybody, and then suddenly,
Can you imagine?
boom. No.
Suddenly there's sugar movement of sugar, blah blah. Here from here to there to I don't know, Thika. From Thika it left. It has found itself in Kawangware.
Who distilled
Some
didn't do
shops
what?
in
There are only
Kawangware.
14 bags left over. From what?
And by the way, this story engulfs the Minister for Trade, his PS. It even
There's also
covers
some MPs
Justin
in
Justin
Kenya.
Muturi's name is also mentioned in it.
There's an MP from Thika.
Central, yeah.
Yes.
Story man, sana.
It has.
Yeah.
It has.
But all these things are happening like this. Finance bill, Mulisa. Finance bill, Mulisa. That whole issue of taxation, finance bill, that story has moved from people. They are now focusing on are we consuming contraband sugar, poisonous stuff or not? Keep it here for more. Good morning. 8 now, 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. The main suspect in the theft and sale of poisonous sugar, Crispus Waithaka, is expected to appear in court today, along with 5 other suspects. Waithaka is one among the suspects who are accused of stealing the sugar and sold it from Thika warehouse to Kenyans. Now, Waithaka was arrested at JKIA while returning to the country from Dubai. It is believed that Waithaka, who is the director of Asset and Cargo Limited Company, was among the people who managed to access the 40 containers where the sugar was stored. Immigration officers say Waithaka, who was armed with a court order to prevent his arrest, was presented at the Kamkunji police station. Waithaka is the first suspect to be arrested since this and is believed that the sugar has been sold to Kenyans. Detectives Thursday last week recovered 14 bags of the said sugar in a retail store in Eastleigh, Nairobi. A total of 20,000 bags of sugar disappeared from the Thika depot earlier this month. Among the people being investigated are Cabinet Secretary and a Member of Parliament who are suspected of being accomplices to the crime. Thus far, 27 officers from KRA, Kenya Police and the KEBS have been suspended pending investigations. Now, Civil Society Alliance has threatened to file a lawsuit to ban Nurdin Haji from taking office as Director General of the National Intelligence Service should the House approve his name. Led by Transparency International, the National Intelligence Alliance said Haji is unfit to hold office, citing integrity concerns. NIA urged President Ruto, who nominated Haji, presently serving as Director of Public Prosecutions, to consider alternative candidates. The alliance accused Haji of gross misconduct, incompetence and non-compliance with the Constitution violations, and civil society groups argued would disqualify him from holding any public office. And Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki says proposed reforms on religious societies in the country will proceed unhindered despite opposition from a section of preachers. Kindiki called on churches to back efforts to tame rogue preachers in the country in the wake of revelation of the Shakahola starvation cult linked to controversial televangelist Paul Mackenzie of the Good News International Church.
And all religions must support the government effort to rein in on criminal elements and terrorists who are hiding in the church to kill people. And even if the church does not support us, we will go ahead as government.
The Interior CS stressed that the government will not back down in its resolve to regulate religious institutions, even as it put on notice religious leaders who oppose to the newly created task force mandated to explore a foolproof framework for self-regulation.
There is no difference between Osama bin Laden, Mackenzie na Mackenzie wengi ambao wako Kenya hii. Tumepoteza watu wengi, hatujui ni watu wangapi, kwa sababu tunavyoongea sasa bado tunanusuru watu kutoka pale. Ile hasara tumepata pale Kilifi, ile sio hasara ya Pwani na sio hasara ya Kilifi, ni hasara ya Kenya. Wale watu tumetoa pale wanatoka katika kila pembe ya taifa.
The retired President Uhuru Kenyatta, Azimio boss Raila Odinga and other Azimio leaders are expected to grace the Jubilee Party's National Delegates Congress to be held at the Congress these as Kiharu Member of Parliament Ndindi Nyoro and Jubilee leaders called on former President Uhuru Kenyatta to abide by the Presidential Retirement Benefits Act and quit party politics. Nyoro said that Kenyatta should learn from his predecessors, late Presidents Daniel Moi and Mwai Kibaki, and support his successor by steering away from politics.
Nataka nitangaze nikiwa katibu mkuu wa chama cha Jubilee, hakuna mkutano wa NDC. Tutaitana mkutano wa NDC wakati utafaa,
kwa sababu hata hiyo position ya party leader iliisha 6 months ago na sasa tuko 8 months. Kwa hivyo ile waliona kwa gazeti hiyo ni porojo. Wale wataenda mkutano wa Nairobi, hiyo ni mkutano tu ya kisiasa.
Tulifanya uchaguzi, kila kitu kikafanyika, Mungu akatupatia rais, Mungu akatupatia makamu wa rais na viongozi. Na wewe usiku mchana uko pale unapiga dramu, unangojea haitafanyika kwa sababu Mungu ameshaamua na hiyo imefanyika, ongojea wakati mwingine.
The Jubilee legislators have also raised concerns as why Kenyatta is now calling for the NDC, yet when they complained, the former head of state ignored their complaints. This is News. I am Dennis Aseta. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
All right, a few minutes after 7 o'clock, and we're looking at traffic building up in different parts of the city. Jogoo Road started early, and we're seeing that piling up as you're getting towards the City Stadium roundabout. Some of it on Lusaka Road this morning. That's what we're looking at, bumper to bumper. Uhuru Highway, then, as you're coming in from the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, find some traffic as you're getting into the CBD, but where the action is happening really this morning is on the Thika Superhighway. Man, folks coming in from Kiambu County, and it's hot and heavy, coming in from Thika Town, well through to the GSU headquarters out towards KCA and then all the way through into the CBD. It's bumper to bumper and another bumper this morning. It is not looking pretty at all. The service lanes, however, not looking too bad. There's an option for you to use. Kembu Road, in and outbound traffic heavy, but it's probably all inbound, and we're looking at a number of lanes as trying to get into the city. All right, what else are we looking at? There's traffic coming in from Parklands, Westlands. There's traffic coming in off James Gishuru and onto Wayaki Way this morning. Literally everywhere you look this morning, traffic has started very, very early. Where are you? Please be safe no matter what. Talk to us on Spice FM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It is 7 minutes after 7, and it's now time for us to get into the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, on this 22nd day of May 2023. Just a couple more days, and then we are done with May. We get into June. And you know what comes with June? Big things happening in June.
Budget.
There's that. There's a budget. That big budget is, big things. Yeah. Something else that's big, KTN, is rebranding. Yes. A new look, new feel KTN, new kind of shows and programming coming up. KTN has been a strong reputation for bold, objective, and entertaining shows. And I'm talking about KTN Home. Very, very big. It has a unique tagline, Welcome Home, that suits the entire family. And come June, KTN will be rebranding with lots of exciting and entertaining shows. You don't want to miss this. You can interact with us on all our social media platforms at KTN Home. And you can follow us at KTN Home on all social media platforms to get updated on what's coming. You can start seeing, we'll be unleashing the teasers in the next couple of days, and then you start seeing, so what is this new thing that we expect from KTN Home? KTN Home. KTN Home. Yeah.
Just how you like it.
Just how you like it. Keep it here for that and more. In this conversation, let's talk about the effects of sovereign debt default. And we are joined by Dr. Alex Kamau, who is a business consultant and a lecturer at the Cooperative University. Dr. Kamau, good morning.
Morning to you, Eric.
Karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much for having me.
Cooperative College University, the one in Karen?
Yes, the one in Karen.
What do you teach them?
I teach economics, I teach financial accounting and financial management, taxation as well, and investment analysis.
Where?
God.
Mambo, man.
I have understood nothing. Accounting, I understand.
Taxation?
That one I understand very well.
Economics?
I understand a bit. But financial?
Analysis?
That one is counting the money I'm paid so that I can work with it. That's for me is financial analysis. Then looking at what I've spent it on. I've analyzed it.
That's analyzing.
Yes. But this financial accounting, I don't understand.
ICT is wondering, is there another accounting apart from financial?
Yes.
Yes, there are a number of other branches of accounting. Financial management, financial accousing. There's management accounting.
Right.
Cost accounting.
Why?
There are quite a number.
Usijali. Don't worry.
I think what Dr. is talking about requires a lot of money. So I need not worry. Because I do not have a lot of money.
You're not in the bracket.
I need not worry.
If you need management, accounting, and those things.
No, that's all right. Thank you for teaching those things.
Thank you.
Dr. Kamau, to welcome you to the show.
Yes.
CT has the day's proverb. This week's proverb, CT, are from?
Djibouti. It isn't Djibouti, but it is pronounced, I'm told, Djibouti. The D is supposed to be silent. All right. A guest who breaks the dishes of his host is not soon forgotten.
A guest who breaks the dishes of his host is not soon forgotten. Dr. Kaba, what do you understand from this?
What I understand by that is actually what we have seen most politicians do here in Kenya. That for them to gain fame, they do anything that is able to sell them, to bring them to increase their publicity.
So they seek notoriety for anything that is most absurd.
Yes.
That is what is going to make them be remembered.
Yes, be remembered.
Okay. Now, Dr. Kama, we have been talking about the state of our economy for a while, and we like having this conversation because it's important for all of us to have various perspectives and look into where we are at. In the end, we all must agree that this is where we are and this is where we need to move. And these are the mistakes that we need not to make and what we need to learn from. Now, we have been talking about the debt in the country. Close to 9 trillion shillings is what is reported by government as our debt burden. And we have to repay a lot of it. Next year, we are going to be paying close to 2 trillion shillings just debt, right? And then there are those who've been saying, the way things are going, if you look at our revenue collections, if you look at how we keep revising our revenue targets and how we don't even hit those revised revenue targets in the last couple of years and how we are doing, we are headed to some very painful points. And we're heading there very fast. Last week, we hosted Jimmy Wenjege, and he's been telling us about this. Look at the papers. Look at the records that we have. And his parting shot last week was probably the thing that we ought to do is actually look at defaulting as a country. If we look at everything that we are facing, maybe we default. Default takes us to that level where we tell people, sasa mtafanya nini? Just like our deputy president says, even if you strip us naked
and beat us
and you spanked us, we have no money to pay you. Mutodu. Now you say that there are adverse effects of a sovereign debt default. Let's start from there.
Yes, that's true, Eric. There are adverse effects of a sovereign debt default. And I will start by saying that it is not easy to default for a country as it is for an individual. Because an individual, once you declare that you are unable to pay your debts, you can access the bankruptcy code that protects you from being sued or being auctioned for a period of time as you try to reorganize yourself. But for a country, it is quite different. So in the issue, if we default, for instance, here in Kenya, we are a net importer country. And according to the economic survey report that was released a few weeks ago, we imported 2.2 trillion worth of goods and services from abroad, and what we exported is about 800 billion. So that means we had a net import effect of 1.6 trillion. And for us to import all that, what we need is foreign currency. And for us to have foreign currency, we need to either increase our exports or we ask for funding from IMF, from other multilateral lending agencies, which, if we default, we will not be able to access those facilities. Because the moment we default, the credit rating agencies, the global credit rating agencies, JP Morgan, we have Fitch, we have Standard & Poor, they will downgrade our position, and once we are downgraded, it will be extremely very difficult
to do what?
To continue importing goods and services that are critical to the survival of us as Kenyans. For instance, in 2021, when Sri Lanka defaulted, they were unable even to import fuel. And we could see that the entire public sector was affected. Even critical vehicles like hospital cars, hospital vehicles, they were grounded.
Why? So, sorry, Dr. Make the connection for us then directly
Yes.
between a default by a nation and then inability to then be able to import goods. How? Connect the two for us. I don't have money to pay you your loan.
Yes.
How does that then stop me from bringing in the things then that we need in the country?
That's a good one. Let me start by saying that as it is right now, we have about 6.5 billion US dollars as the foreign reserve with the CBK.
Okay.
And that only represents about 3.5 of the imports that we do in a month. That is called the import cover. The import cover is 3.5 months. So basically, it means that if we deplete that import cover that we have, those 6.5 billion US dollars, then we'll be unable to continue importing fuel because fuel.
But how would we be depleting?
We deplete because we have two ways of accumulating foreign currency, foreign reserve, either by increasing exports. When we are exporting, we get foreign currency, or the alternative to that is when we have loans coming from IMF, coming from World Bank in form of dollars, in form of foreign currency. And if we default paying the existing loans, then it means that no other foreign
we shut down the tap of money coming in through the lending route.
Through the lending route, yes.
But then our export route still remains open.
That's for sure. But as you can see from the economic survey report that was released about 2 weeks ago, the exports are not sufficient to they are not adequate to
cover the reserves.
To cover our imports, because we are importing more by 1.6 trillion. So that one actually needs to.
But that trade imbalance.
Yes.
I mean, countries have trade imbalances. It's not as though Kenya is inventing it.
Yes.
How then do we ensure that we export more than we are exporting?
That's a very good question.
Yes.
And the way we can ensure that we export more than we are importing is, first of all, to make Kenya a conducive environment for businesses to thrive. But as it is right now, starting from the issue of cost of electricity, cost of production, and the issue of taxation, because right now we have increased the taxation rate, so that we try to accumulate and to mobilize and to collect more taxes. And by doing that, we are also sending a very negative signal to prospective foreign investors.
But Dr. A weak shilling should make our exports more attractive.
Yes.
Because it means you will be buying it compared to whatever currency you want to convert it on the international market. It will cost them less. Now, the issue of these are the details of how it is, the expense that we keep saying is prevalent in Kenya with regards to doing business. That is something that the government, the government is the only entity that can change that. They can. I wonder, why don't they? Because it's not as though it hasn't been mentioned. It has been mentioned before. If it is something that would help increase, though the number of people who want to come into the country to invest, and by so investing, bring in more money. And by bringing in more money, make it possible for the circulation of money to also increase. And when that happens, it means there is more for them to tax. So, yet the government can do this. There are people like you who work in the Ministry of Finance and the Treasury, and they know this.
Yes.
And they're in the government.
Yes.
So why are we not doing it?
I think we have a long journey to cover, because for instance the cases that we are hearing right now from the issue of corruption at KEMSA, from the issue of this poisonous sugar that is in circulation. So corruption is a key deterrent to foreign direct investment, because when we look at countries like those Scandinavian countries like Denmark, corruption control there is at 100%. But when we look at our statistics here in Kenya, it is at 26%. So because of bad reputation crisis that we have as a country, that makes foreign investors not to freely come to Kenya, because there's what is called investors' confidence. And so if the government can be able to deal with these corruption cases, like now the issue of KEMSA, we had the president was able to suspend key officials in that department or in that parastatal. But if that does not end, that should not end there. We should see them being taken to court, being prosecuted, and whatever it is, if they are confirmed to have stolen, it should be given back to the government.
So if the land, if Global Fund, who are responsible for the monies that we're talking about, had not kicked a fuss, because they kicked a fuss, okay, but after some 800 million shillings had done a little walkabout, and somehow it wasn't the walkabout for which it was purposed. Now, what about other monies, like, say, our own money, which the government collects through KRA, and there's no Global Fund to kick a fuss about? And that is what we see happening on a daily basis. So the picture that gets painted is that we're in this vicious cycle that will never end.
That's for sure. Because we have seen, I think the culture that we have here in Kenya, for instance, if I take you in 2013, the issue of a chicken gate scandal, where there was, during the procurement of election materials, the BVR, and the other equipment, a scandal came up, and those who had because the Kenya as a country that was procuring those items from Europe, in the process there was that corruption issue, and the people who are partners with Kenya in UK, they were actually prosecuted and jailed. But here in Kenya, nothing happened. So it is the issue of corruption that in those developed economies we hear, whenever there is a scandal, they are willing even to step aside and to be investigated.
That is not corruption.
Yes.
Corruption is a manifestation of impunity.
Yes.
The reason why somebody can commit something that is wrong and they still, as we say in Kiswahili, kangumu, is because they know nothing will happen. That's impunity. Because if something started happening, we would see less and less of these things.
That's for sure.
But they know nothing. It's like there's a certainty that nothing will happen.
Nothing is going to happen.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Doc, you're saying that if Kenya defaulted, that is, there's some loan that's due to be paid at a certain time, we owe the largest amount of money that we owe is to China, right? And then to the other bilaterals and multilaterals, and of course, the market through Eurobond. If that money was due at a certain point and we don't pay, that is default.
That's default.
So once we defaulted, you say it's not a good thing for us if we got there. Because we get downgraded, we become pariahs, we cannot borrow from the market. But can we borrow from IMF?
We cannot borrow from IMF unless we meet the conditions that IMF would put for us. For instance, the IMF, even as we speak, it is IMF that is pushing for structural adjustments here in Kenya. The issue of introduction of VAT on fuel, it was about IMF. The issue of privatization of state-owned enterprises, it is IMF. And the IMF, for instance, the case for Ghana, recently IMF said for us to come to your rescue, you also need to do debt restructuring. And debt restructuring, actually how it happened in Ghana, even the local investors who had invested with the Ghana government in terms of buying treasury bonds, they were told they will be subjected to some sort of pain, that the interest payable to them for the treasury bond they have invested with the government would be suspended for 3 years. For the first 1 year, they will be paid zero interest. For the second year, they will be paid about 5%. And the third year, that's when now the institution will start to normalize. And we also, the issue of the face value of the amount that they had given to the government. For instance, if you had invested with the government a bond of 100,000, then the Ghana government was told by IMF that you need to reduce the principal amount by that percent. So every other person was getting a haircut.
Yeah.
So the IMF would put some conditions to be met before they come in. They say we are the international lenders, but and let me say this, that it is not the first time that African countries have been awarded debt relief. And debt relief is proving to be unsustainable strategy for the governments to manage their debts.
Why do they then call it even debt relief? Because there's no relief really.
So, I mean, here we are, and the word that you used, which I circled here, was rescue.
Yes.
That if the IMF and other financial global institutions come and offer you, something as a nation, rescue package, it comes with certain conditionalities and things that you must do, which, in my opinion, really then serve as ways for countries to be perennially financially subservient to them. It never really rescues you. It doesn't get you out of trouble. What happens is that you get the loan, you pay it for some time, but then after some time you're going to need a little bit more, and you're going to keep taking more, and then you're going to actually pander to the whims of this institution that can hold this thing over your head. So the question is, is this really a sustainable way of getting a nation, any nation, out of trouble? And should that be the first option? Because we say, well, there's always somebody we can borrow from. Yes, you can. But then you will forever be in their debt. No pun intended.
I think it's a good thing that IMF is doing, but because when we are giving aid, it's good also not to treat the symptoms, but to treat the cause. For instance, in 2005, most African countries that were suffering had high debts. Actually, those debts were forgiven through an initiative that was called the High IPC. That is highly indebted poor countries in Africa. And once their debts were forgiven, including Ghana and Zambia, a few years down the line.
Were we forgiven as Kenyans?
No, as we are not.
You were not in the category.
Yes, you are not in that category. So what the IMF does is to say, apart from just giving you the aids, you need to do something, to do fiscal consolidation. You need to see some fiscal discipline coming from your side. And fiscal discipline comes in two ways. Because we have fiscal policies and we have monetary policies. The fiscal policy is about the national government. The national government is asked to raise more taxes and also to cut down on its spending.
Yes.
It's
Why is it that the IMF or World Bank talk about everything rather than what they ought to be talking about? Because all these things, it's mumbo jumbo, economics and financial talk. Yet we know the reason why we have these problems is because every time we have a budget in this country for any development, whether at the county level or the national government, corruption is budgeted in it. So everything costs infinitely more than it should cost, just for starters.
So can I add to that and ask a question? If we're able to do an audit, which I'm sure somebody in these financial circles has actually done, and maybe that information has not come public, the nations that have gone close or teetering on the precipice of default, has only natural occurrences happened to cause this, or has there been direct manipulation, like corruption, for example, whereby then you're not able to meet your debt obligation? Has the money that has been borrowed for development only ever gone to development? Has the money that, there's not enough money to go round, and we've done everything that we're supposed to do, but it's just, life has happened and it's just not enough? Or has the hand of corruption played? All these people who are teetering on the corner of this debt default, can you see that there is something avoidable that happened to bring these nations to this issue?
Yes, if I can mention the issue of corruption, like the former president said that we lose 2 billion in a day. So that's about 700 billion in a year. That's a lot of money compared to our revenue collection in a year, almost more than a third. So if that money is properly taken care of, then we wouldn't need to even continue to borrow. So the issue of corruption is a big thing.
It's the thing, isn't it?
Yes, the issue of corruption is the main thing.
Is it a common thread as well? If you look at those other countries, say Zambia, Sri Lanka, Argentina, and all the other countries that have gotten to that level of default.
Yes.
Has corruption been mentioned as a cause?
Corruption has been mentioned, but if Eric, you can allow me also to talk about how we acquire debt. For instance, the $2 billion dollars loan that we acquired in 2014.
You're talking about the Eurobond.
The Eurobond.
The one which never came to Kenya.
The one that is very controversial. That is, we are supposed to repay by next year, because it was a 10-year bond. So that bond, actually, because it was an infrastructural bond, we needed to do the SGR. The maturity for that bond should not have been 10 years. It should have been, for instance, 30 years, because 10 years is a very short time period to pay back
such an amount.
It
becomes very expensive.
So we got it wrong from the word go. That Eurobond should have been a longer repayment period. Then there's a Eurobond is a very unique loan, not like the loan that you and I go to get from financial institutions, because Eurobond, you on a yearly basis, you only pay the interest, and you pay the principal amount at the end. So what Kenya should be doing is to have a sinking fund that every year, because we know after 10 years we'll have to pay a $2 billion US dollar loan. Every year we set aside a 10% of that principal amount. Another year we set 10%, so that by the time we are getting to the 10 year, it doesn't get us by surprise. So that's called that would amount to proper financial management.
But do we do it?
We don't do it. Actually, what happens is that when we near to repay the principal amount, then we start planning to obtain another loan of the same amount or more, so that we can refinance. And now the worst case scenario, like when in 2014, when we were obtaining that Eurobond, we obtained it at an interest rate of about 7%. But right now, the Eurobond value has declined because of the adverse economic situation globally. And now it is trading at a yield of about 17%.
Okay.
So if we go back to the market right now and we want to roll out another Eurobond, then we would be required to settle for a 17%
interest rate. Let's take a break. It is 27 minutes to 8. Kenya's biggest conversation is hosting Alex Kamau this morning. Alex is an economics lecturer at the Cooperative University here in Nairobi. He's also a business consultant. We are talking about the effects of a sovereign debt default. Should we default? Should we not? And if we then say we should avoid defaulting by hook or crook, what should we do then? Just like you said, Alex, the 2 billion is due next year, plus other interest for other loans that we still have to pay. So we have a heavy debt burden to pay in the next financial year. What do we do? How do we raise the money for it? And if we don't default, then what next? 26 to 10, 26 to 8, back shortly. Have you called Two Rivers? If you haven't, just walk to Two Rivers and find out what they have been doing, because they are doing a very big deal, building those beautiful houses at Two Rivers. Centum Real Estate are saying, come in and let's talk about either owning a house at Two Rivers or any of our other projects. You can text the words Two Rivers to 22365. That's 22365. They'll get back in touch with you. They'll tell you more about the projects. Centum Real Estate.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Close your eyes. Imagine your unsecured personal loan application has been approved. Imagine all the things you can do and buy. Imagine all the life goals you can achieve. Now stop imagining. Talk to your employer to switch to I&M at Work and get access to Kenya's largest unsecured personal loan of up to 10 million shillings. Call 0719 088 000 today. I&M. Tunakujali.
Congratulations. You've seen the hand of the Lord.
Thank you very much. I've earned another title today this morning at Spice FM. Mama Justice, I don't mind it.
Joel in Kericho.
Salama sana Eric, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama bwana, mambo namna gani?
Salama kabisa bro.
Mambo ya Inamoi kuliendaje?
Mambo ya Inamoi, vile nilikwambia ndugu yangu, alienda asubuhi na ile gari ya kwanza.
I must have missed it.
So did I.
Even if somebody was to render you irrelevant, there is still work you can do.
Okay, sawa.
I deserve to keep you accountable. You deserve to give me a report. You don't work for me. No, I don't work for you. You work for me.
Do you like that Freudian slip? Lovely, isn't it? Thank you very much.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
It's cloudy at 16 in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 24 and highs of 26 in Nakuru, where the sun is up at 14. It's 16 and mostly cloudy in Nyeri, highs of 23, and it'll go to highs of 24 in a sunny Eldoret at 14. At 25, it's cloudy in Mombasa, highs of 30, and we'll see highs of 30 as well in a cloudy Malindi at 26. At 20, sunny conditions in Kisumu, highs of 30, and we'll see highs of 28 in a partly sunny Kakamega at 17. At 19, it's sunny in Kampala, highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 29 in a sunny Dar es Salaam at 25. It's slightly warmer at 7 degrees in Johannesburg, highs of 19 and lows of 7, and mostly clear in Lagos at 26, highs of 31. The rains have stopped for some time in Kinshasa. It's now cloudy at 24. It will go to highs of 31.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, so still looking at heavy traffic coming off the Thika Superhighway this morning. And then on the other side of town, Magadi Road, there seems to be an issue. Not quite sure what's causing that. But then Magadi spilling over towards Langata Road. Really, really heavy traffic coming after that junction towards Bomas, moving very, very slowly. It looks like Monday morning has decided to come out in all its glory with traffic. Langata Road then coming out towards Raila Odinga Way. It'll be heavy. And also touch on Uhuru Highway this morning. Kiambu Road is an absolute mess. 7th circle of hell is what is being described this morning already. And there's a lot of lanes trying to come in towards Muthaiga at the square. What else are we looking at? James Gishiro packing up as you're crossing over towards Waiyaki Way and then out towards the Red Hill Link Road and coming off of the Eastern Bypass, or going towards the Eastern Bypass rather. North Airport Road, out to Outer Ring, and then through to the Eastern Bypass. Heavy traffic this morning. It's one for the books this Monday. Let's keep an eye on things and see what's happening in your neck of the woods. Talk to us just in case things pack up. Spice FM, KE on Twitter.
Spice up your life.
Yeah, the conversation continues at 21 minutes to 8. Dr. Alex Kamau, lecturer at Cooperative University, is our guest this morning. We're talking about our options out of our current financial situation that we are in. You are discouraging anything from even thinking about defaulting. Okay, so we should not get to a point where our loan payment is due and we don't have the money to pay. Because if we get there, we default. If we default, issues happen. We then don't have access to the market in terms of borrowing. We can only go to these Bretton Woods institutions, and the Bretton Woods institutions would come in and say, you know what, you need to first of all get some manners. And until I see that you have gotten some manners, I'm not giving you money. And the manners will include very many other things and pain. There'll also be pain in terms of our inflation going up, in terms of our currency devaluation. And that affects very many things in terms of what we are then earning when we send money. But there's a positive to it. Our goods will be cheaper, so they'll be more competitive in the export market. If we were to avoid default, Daktari,
yes.
What should we do?
If we were to avoid default, one thing what we can do is to to privatize the state-owned enterprises that continue to require bailout by the government.
To milk money out of us.
To milk money out of us. For instance, towards the end of last year, KQ was bailed out by the government, and so if we actually privatize most of the government enterprises, like we did between 2005 and 2010 during Kibaki's era. You remember that is the time that we privatized Safaricom. That is the time we privatized KQ. That is the time we privatized Kengen. That is the time we privatized Mumias. Because I want to list all those because sometimes people think as if privatization is a bad thing. But if we now do that, and I can see the current administration, they have planned to privatize a number of state-owned enterprises. Only that they have started by changing the Privatization Act 2005, and they have proposed a privatization bill 2023, where they want to avoid going through the parliament whenever they want to sell the state-owned enterprises. So because that process is becoming a bit controversial, I would propose that they still use the existing act, Privatization Act 2005.
Go through parliament.
To go through parliament, and then they sell, they privatize something like Kenya Ports Authority, Kenya Pipeline Corporation. We have Chemelil Sugar, Muhoroni Sugar, Miwani Sugar. Even IMF, it is said that IMF had also proposed some private universities to be
public universities.
Some public universities to be privatized. And this could be a good thing because it is in the public domain that there are some lecturers who have not been paid for 3 to 4 years for the work, for the services that they have rendered to public universities.
Okay. Now, privatization.
Yes.
Again, the process of privatization, essentially what that means is taking away the reins of control from public national and giving it to the hands of one organization or entity that one would feel was specialized in operating these things.
And or just get private shareholders.
Or get people who would not essentially put their money into these organizations. What would be the difference then in terms of output because of this, either one, private control, or then private shareholders putting their money into, what would be the difference in output? When you say that something is privatized, what then is the outcome that is different from when it was not? For us to be able to understand this a little bit better.
Being privatized like it happened in Safaricom, that the government was the major shareholder of the Safaricom shares before it was privatized and listed in Nairobi Securities Exchange. But after that, there was a listing and the prospectus were shared and the general public were invited to buy Safaricom shares. And now that entity changes from being government owned or controlled to a private enterprise. And what that means is that it is not controlled by the government in terms of appointments. And that company now have a different corporate structure. It has an advisory board, and everything that, including the recruitment, is done according to
so it becomes competitive in the market.
Yes.
And it's answerable to shareholders that are more than just government.
Exactly.
Like so now Kengen.
Yes.
Kengen has to call an AGM where everybody who has bought the Kengen share, the LC.
Will have so we are saying essentially here that they're indirectly saying that government and government operations and some of these things actually is the problem.
Yes, because we have seen government has a lot of inefficiencies, and the private sector has in many cases done better than the government. So as we say even today, the private ran private schools and universities, they do better even in terms of if you go to primary schools or even secondary schools, they perform better.
Because there's accountability.
Because there's accountability, there's transparency. So the way that state-owned enterprises usually suffer losses because of a concept called moral hazard. And moral hazard says that the doer of the action is not responsible for the consequences of his action. It's like now hiring a driver to drive your matatu. And he will drive it the way he wants, because if he is not the one responsible to take for the care of the repair cost. In case there is a police issue, sometimes they abandon the car and they run away. So even in the government situation, we have seen cases whereby that the officers who are running government enterprises, because of the moral hazard issue, they feel even if they siphon money and resources from the entity, they will still find a way to run away with it.
That's Harry. I hear you, and I even to an extent understand the case that is being made for privatization.
Yes.
But if you ask me, it's also a scapegoat route. And what you don't do is that you don't deal with the issue. Because we're saying, all right, there's a problem here in a government-run or state-run entity. But rather than deal with what the problem is, let's just take that entity and give it to somebody else. That has not taken care of the problem. And shouldn't that be where the attention then is focused if we're looking for a solution? Whether it may be, because it will be long-term. If you're trying to get rid of rot, it is not going to be a snap of the fingers solution tomorrow kind of thing, right? It's going to take time. But for me, these are diversionary tactics. For me, also, another element of control, because what you do is you also find that in privately run institutions, the flow of capital is much more than there is in government, much more. And there's also the element of control that comes in with privatization. Somebody's still bound to benefit, right? But all you're doing is you're taking this monster from this point and you're moving it to this point just because there's a level of accountability. How can you fix the problem? And that's the thing. You won't privatize everything. And there are countries who have shown us that you can actually have state-run, publicly run organizations and entities that work because they're bold enough to deal with the issue of impunity and corruption. Should that not be the issue here that we handle?
Yes, that should be the issue as well. That should be the issue as well. And that's why we started the conversation with the issue of corruption, because we have had the issue of Golden Bag scandal. We had the Grand Regency scandal. We had now the Chicken Gate scandal. Corruption is a key issue. But when the enterprise is privatized, and because we don't hear those corruption cases in private sector, we have not had a corruption case in a place like Safaricom and financial institutions.
You've not heard.
I think he's put it well.
Very well.
You haven't heard.
But it's easier to deal with. I can see the way out, because like Ndu, you're asking, how do you not deal with it? Remember, there's a whole monster here called politics. If you start making moves at a state enterprise today, you will be accused of weeding out a certain tribe or doing this and the other. It becomes private. The board makes a decision. The board acts. The management follows. That's it. If it's about firing a some manager who's just been bumming and coming to work at 10 and leaving at 3, he goes. In a state enterprise, he's a permanent and pensionable.
They'll transfer you.
This and the other. You cannot deal with somebody who's just not working. It's a change. But that's one of the solutions that you're proposing for us to avoid getting into a state of default.
Yes.
What's the other? Privatization is one. What's next?
And the other advantage of privatization, Eric, is that we are widening and deepening our Nairobi Securities Exchange, because for the last 5 years we have not seen any new IPO being rolled out at NSE. But during the Kibaki's time, actually the NSE was very vibrant, because that's when the privatization took place of many state-owned organizations. So it is a good thing, because what we are doing is we'll be developing our NSE. Even right now, the reason we borrow so much externally is because our debt market is not well developed here in Kenya. For instance, recently the government wanted to borrow 50 billion, but it was unable to raise that amount of money. So what we need to do is to ensure that we develop our own capital markets. So privatization is one. Number two is to ensure that we enhance revenue collections here in Kenya. And I can see KRA is doing very well because it is automating revenue collection processes, whereby it is in the process of integrating the systems of telecommunication companies with their own systems at KRA. And that will be able to weed out those tax cheats, people who evade taxes. They will be brought to book. And using those strategies, we are likely to see our revenue collections move from 2 trillion to about 3 trillion.
But then, Dr. the discussion of around the efficiency of KRA in collecting taxes. Yes, what you say is absolutely true.
Yes.
We saw it when Waweru was there.
Yes.
Then we saw the dip when was it Nyeri who came in.
Yes, yes.
Then we saw Mburu come in.
Yes.
And we saw it going up again.
Yes.
That we get, but
yes.
What about ensuring that there is actually more to collect? Because you are seeking to collect more from an existing structure,
yes.
an existing population,
yes.
existing businesses, existing everything. But the discussion about expanding this base,
yes.
you hear it mentioned every once in a while, and yet that is what would guarantee that the 3 trillion I'm talking about we can actually reach.
Yes.
Now, you know as well as we do
yes.
that this discussion about increasing taxes that IMF is suggesting,
yes,
there are countries where it has had the complete opposite effect. You hike the taxes, you collect less.
That's for sure. And this allegation that we are taxed more is not very correct, because Scandinavian countries, in terms of tax revenue to GDP, is 46%, but here in Kenya it is 17%. So actually, what we are doing is still the same issue of corruption, that people, because the money is not properly utilized, their revenue, the taxes, they are not willing to fund the government. But if we can deal with the issue of corruption, then we can start seeing people more willing.
I want you to explain to me,
yes.
How do you arrive at this 17%? What arithmetic do you do to get at this 17% that you just mentioned?
Very well. 17%, we say it is tax revenue to GDP ratio. So the tax revenue that we collected last year is about 2 trillion.
Yep.
And the GDP of the country, by that time last year, by that first December 2022, was 14 trillion. So if you say 2 trillion divided by 14 trillion multiplied by 100%, it comes to 17%.
So essentially, if we were a Scandinavian country and it was
yes.
46,
yes.
the amount that we've collected,
yes.
you need to multiply it by something like 3 to be able to get to that level, isn't it?
Yes, and in simple terms, City, is that for every 100 shillings that a citizen of Denmark or a Scandinavian country earns, he gives back to the government for 46 shillings.
And what does
but then if you also look at what happens, also a citizen of Denmark, their children will not pay a cent. They will not pay a cent of fees
yes.
until their children turn 18.
Yes, yes. Yes.
Nobody has to beg government to fix a pothole in the road.
Yes.
Never one day will they open the tap and
yes.
water doesn't run out of it.
Yes.
Never one day will the power go out.
Yes.
Never one day will they go to hospital and not get the services of medical goods that they require. Never one day.
Exactly, Ndu. And that's why we need to shift the conversation from saying that we are highly taxed to saying that we need to increase the government efficiency and effectiveness in delivery of services to Mwananchi. And we also need to put corruption under control. Like in Denmark, it is under control 100%.
Daktari,
yes,
we are overly taxed.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
It's a simple fact. You
yes.
see, if the very services with what we have and which are supposed to be provided for by the government isn't provided for, we end up paying for it, don't we?
Yes.
Money which we need not have paid.
That's for sure.
So if you do the maths, we may find that we are almost on par with Denmark, that for every 100 shillings that a Kenyan gets,
where the money goes.
Yes, exactly. Because the truth of the matter is, even as we have this discussion about what the government ought to do and what they have, we never have any guarantee or an honest discussion about this little money that they have, even let's put it at 10%, whether it actually goes to what they say it's supposed to go to. Because if it did, then we would witness the changes, but we don't, because it doesn't.
Our issue is not a revenue collection issue.
No.
It is an expenditure issue.
An expenditure issue.
The 2 trillion shillings that
Yes.
was collected,
Yes.
how has it been utilized?
But they collected it.
The 2.4 trillion shillings that's been collected. Now their target is 2.8 trillion shillings. How is it being utilized? Even if you're using it to, use that and say, this is my guarantee that I can, if I come and borrow, I can pay, you can see. How are you utilizing the money that you've borrowed? The 6 trillion shillings that was borrowed between 2014 and 2022, how has it been utilized? I think those are the issues.
Those are the issues, and here
because 17% is not. We are actually at 17%. It's fine, but that 17%, is it commensurate value?
It's an accountability issue here. Over the weekend, people were shouting, making noise because the Home Secretary had a speeding ticket. Can you imagine that she has to come before Parliament and start to explain herself how she was actually over speeding and she's very, very sorry.
Who's that?
In the UK.
Home Secretary of the UK.
And that, please, can you imagine? The whole country has got its knickers in a twist because she had a speeding ticket.
Alishiko na NTSA.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah? And to the point where people are even saying, what do you mean? Public figure, you should even resign. So now here we are saying that trillions of shillings are unaccounted for and that there are individuals in different departments who are responsible for the expenditure. That trillions of shillings are collected by an authority and people don't even know exactly where this money went. Somebody had a speeding ticket. The whole country is shouting as if things are about to go to hell.
They have
Something is a systemic issue.
An accountability and an accountability culture.
Yes.
Where it is understood. You're a public servant, you're accountable. If you're not, it's clear.
Yes.
Ours, we look for every which way to find an excuse for it, to explain it. This privatization, we talk about it. Essentially, it's fundraising.
That's for sure.
You see? No, it is fundraising because when you privatize, you are selling. When you sell, people buy, you get money.
Yeah.
Okay? So you have more money than you had before, isn't it?
That's for sure.
Precisely. Now, when we've done that, and you correctly put it, we've seen institutions thrive. Like Kenya Airways thrived. It thrived. We actually saw it. There's a guy called Brian Davis. I still remember the name because I still remember what happened to KQ. Then we get something called the Mawingu Project. And God Almighty, things went so south. South even stopped being south. And suddenly Kenya Airways just can't seem to get out of whatever situation that it's in. And if you observe, the blame falls squarely on the leadership in government at that particular point. So, even as we have these delightful discussions, and as we have Kenyans rallying from the diaspora to keep sending us money, okay? And it's not in shillings, it's in foreign exchange, okay? That comes in. They really rally. It's our major source of foreign exchange. The same question of expenditure still comes in. Where does our money actually go to?
Very good question. And the former president answered that question very well. 2 billion per day.
He didn't tell us where it goes.
Tell us where it goes.
No, he didn't tell us.
He just told us 2 billion gets
And
lost.
by the way, Ethics and Anti-Corruption did their own maths. They came up with 2.7 billion per day.
2.7 billion per day.
Just extrapolating from what the Auditor General had been pointing out.
A third of our budget basically is eaten by corruption.
Yes.
And actually, to be fair to the current government, because it has inherited the huge debts.
It has.
That, out of 1.8 trillion that so far we are foreseen that we'll collect for the year 2022-2023, about 1.4 trillion will go to debt servicing. So we are only left with about 400 billion to pay our salaries, to pay the civil servants, the recurrent expenditure, and also the capital expenditure.
Whose total bill is $1 trillion.
Yes. So the best thing would be to restructure our debt and also to refinance our debt, because what happens is that. And the government is trying to do that, because it is trying to prolong and extend the repayment period, the maturity of the debts that we borrow either locally or externally. Or internationally.
Let's see if they succeed. Daktari,
Yes.
Thank you for joining us today. You'll come again soon. Dr. Alex Kamau is a university lecturer for economics at the Cooperative University. He's also a business consultant. More conversations in the next hour. It's 8 a.m.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. 25 people have been affected with cholera in Sindo Town in Homa Bay County. Currently, 21 people are admitted to Suba Sub-County Hospital after 4 others were treated and discharged. The Chief Health Officer in Homa Bay County, Kevin Osuri, has confirmed the cases, while most of them were reported in Wadianga Beach in the county. According to Osuri, they have already sent their officers to the area to inspect the situation and to sensitize residents on the disease. Osuri has asked the residents of the area to maintain cleanliness to prevent further infections. This is happening at a time when 8 other people have been admitted to Gatundu Hospital Level 5, Kiambu County, following the disease. County Health Officer Lucy Mumbi has advised residents to ensure they use clean water to prevent further infections.
So the county government of Kiambu is doing the best it can for us to be able to contain. So ndio hii ugonjwa ya cholera isienee, tunawe mikono, tuoshe chakula vizuri, tukae kwa hali ya juu ya usafi na kuchemsha maji.
Residents say that the water they use is dirty as it mixes with sewer water.
Hizi visha zilianza last week, sasa zenye hizi sewer line zilianza kutengenezwa. Sasa hapo unajua maji yenye imepitia na huku chini. Sasa hiyo wamechibua, unajua imechanganyika na uchafu. Sasa hata yenye inatoka kwa mfereji hujui kama ni hiyo sewage ama ni nini.
Hatuelewi kwa nini shimo ichimbwe na pipes za hizo the drainage pipes ziacho zimefunguliwa, yet serikali aiangalie the measures to control ama venye hiyo au watu watakuwa wana how it can be contained, like venye hizo zinaweza peleka hiyo waste.
The Kakamega County Deputy Governor Ayub Savula has asked President William Ruto and Azimio leader Raila Odinga to hold talks on how the cost of living will be reduced. Savula says Kenyans are experiencing a difficult time due to the high cost of living, and this has been caused by the rising political temperatures in the country. He says that it would be good if the two leaders work together to solve the issues facing Kenyans, especially the high cost of living, citing the price of sugar and flour continue to go up.
Nimeona William Samoei Ruto wamekaa na Raila. Mimi nimefurahi kabisa. Hao viongozi wawili wakae pamoja wasuluhishe matatizo ya hii Kenya. Bei ya sukari leo 240 kilo moja, na kitambo kilo 2 ndio ilikuwa 200 shilling. Hao jamaa wakae chini tusuluhishe. Huyu mwananchi ameumia na punda imechoka. Hawa wakae wawili, Raila and Ruto, sit together, solve the problem facing the economy of this country. Mwananchi anaumia.
The family in Kapsokony, Mount Elgon constituency in Bungoma County is living in fear following the disappearance of their 15-year-old daughter named Jemima Chemtai, a student at St. Cecilia Misiaku Girls High School. According to the father, his daughter disappeared more than a week ago on her way to school, and until now her whereabouts are unknown. For the calling on anyone who has information to file a report to the nearest police station.
Hatujui mahali mtoto aliko. Hivi sasa ni wiki moja imepita. Ombi langu kama mzazi wa Chemima, kwanza naomba ya kwamba Chemima, kama unanisikiza, kama babako mahali kokote uliko, pendo langu kwako hiyo ni kwa sababu nimehakikisha kwamba hivyo ni ujunge na yeye shule ya upili, shule ambaye ni ya kiwango ya juu, na kuomba kwa unyenyekevu urudi nyumbani. Ungali ni mwanangu, kila mmoja anakupenda, hata mimi mzazi na mtu yeyote yule awaye.
He says he had asked his daughter to go through Kimilili town to get school fees, but later when he called the bank attendant who was supposed to deal with her, he was informed that she had not arrived even though her school uniform and bag were found.
Kwa hiyo hatukuona dalili yoyote ambayo ingeweza kutuelezea kwamba huyu msichana alikuwa na matatizo yoyote ile. Nilikuwa vile nimemtayarisha ili akaweza kupata money order kwa hiyo postal address ama postal office yetu ya hapa Kapsokony. Baada ya muda chache hivi nilipofikia yule mfanyikazi wa postal office akaniambia huyo mtoto hajaonekana mahali pale. So katika harakati hiyo tulipokuwa tunajaribu kujua ni yapi alikuwa imetukia kwa wakati alipotoka hapa nyumbani na hakufika kule postal office, kawa tunajiuliza kwani ameenda kuchelewa wapi.
Now, sporadic fighting between Sudan's warring factions could be heard in the capital Khartoum after Saudi and US broke a deal for a week-long ceasefire, raised hopes of a pause in the 5-week conflict. The deal signed by the army and the rival paramilitary rapid support forces after talks in the Saudi city of Jeddah is due to come into effect today in the evening with an internationally supported monitoring mechanism. It also allows for the delivery of humanitarian aid. This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto, good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
How about we call it Traffic Monday? This is what's happening coming off of Lunga Lunga. And you get onto the Likoni interchange and touch on the Southern Bypass. Quite some traffic going on there. On Jogo Road is actually quite busy as well. We're looking at the Thika Superhighway, hot and heavy. Started very early. Traffic coming in all the way from Thika Town, slowly creeping into Nairobi. And then we're also looking at Kiambu Road, which is back to back, bumper to bumper. I can't think of another B, but okay, that's what it is. It's also heavy on Limuru Road. We're coming off of United Nations Avenue, as well as coming in from Kitisuru. All of that is an absolute mess. James Gishoro is busy. It's spilling over to what is already traffic on Wayaki Way. Looking at coming in from Naivasha Road and then Gitanga Road. Everybody spilling into Westlands and then eventually into the CBD. There's madness happening on Magadi Road, coming in from Rongai this morning and then going off towards Langata Road. So everywhere you look, there's a spot of traffic. Where are you? Stay safe. Let us know what's going on where you are. And then let's talk on Spice FM, KE on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Welcome to the third hour of the Situation Room, live on Spice FM, on YouTube and Facebook, and also on the soon-to-be rebranded KTN Home. Welcome Home. We've been talking about Welcome Home for a while, and you know, KTN has been here for long. It gives you this beautiful programming, entertainment, infotainment, education, creating awareness. And what the team at KTN has been doing over the last couple of months is working on revamping this so that it give you a better look and feel and a better arrangement of programs. So come June, KTN Home rebrands and relaunches. Keep it up for that. Now, Kate, you can follow us on KTN Home on all social media platforms, whether it's TikTok or YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of them. Just go KTN Home, KTN Home, KTN Home. Shortly, we'll start releasing those teasers to show you what's coming. Just give you a feel of what's coming. Let's talk about housing and what's happening in the country. The whole agenda of affordable housing is not a new one. It's not new with this administration. Was there with the previous administration. Was in the manifesto for Kenya Kwanza, for Azimio, for... I don't know, did Wahiga Moras have affordable housing?
Yes, he did.
Yes. He did?
Yes, he did.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That one as well. Plus, Wajakoya also was talking about housing, big time. Now, there's the issue of the housing fund. Now, there's about understanding this whole issue. We have brought in an expert to talk to us about this morning. He is an architect by training. Dr. Architect Daniel Manduku was the founder director of the National Construction Authority. He is now a member of parliament for Nyeri Masaba. He is a member of the Housing, Urban Planning and Public Works Committee of the National Assembly. Dr. Good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you back here.
It's always a pleasure to come to this studio. Yes.
I see the toll of Parliament is actually, the workload of Parliament is taking its toll on you.
Yeah, of course.
You have more greying hair than the last time you were here.
Yes.
It's a lot of work, isn't it?
Well, it's a lot of work, but it's also enjoyable work.
Serving the people.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. To welcome you to the show, City has the day's proverb, and this week the proverbs are from Djibouti.
Yes. A guest who breaks the dishes of his host is not soon forgotten.
A guest who breaks the dishes of his host of the host's home is not soon forgotten. Mheshimiwa, what do you make of that proverb? What do you think the Djibouti? What do you call the people from Djibouti? Djiboutis.
Djibouti.
The people from Djibouti are called Djibouti. Okay. What do you think the Djibouti?
I think they were trying to, or they're trying to communicate that if you are invited to a place and you make a mess of it, you will not easily be forgotten.
You will be remembered.
You will be remembered for the wrong reason, that is.
For all the wrong reasons.
Yes.
You'll not be forgotten. Mheshimiwa, even the last time you were here and you were joining this Housing and Urban Planning and Public Works Committee, you came and you talked about housing in this country.
Yes, I did.
And that's the time we came and you told us, you know what, first of all, our building code, there are very many things that need to happen before we even start talking about housing and affordable housing. There are many things that should happen from policy and legislation and practice. And then we shall talk about getting to bridge the housing gap. Now we are here. What will be coming before you shortly is the finance bill, which contains the proposal for a housing fund. The people of Nyeri must have asked you one or two questions. What are they saying?
Of course, what is clear out there is that there seems to be lack of adequate information. And in my opinion, lumping the housing levy together with the finance bill has misconstrued the initial intention. Obviously, bringing this bill together with the levy therein implies to most people that it's a tax. But in real sense, it is not a tax. And allow me to speak as an expert, not as a member of parliament here. The housing levy, as proposed in the current finance bill, is actually a mandatory contribution. And there are good things about it. First, it is capped at a maximum of 2,500 shillings per month. Secondly, the employer is under obligation to match the amount that the employee contributes. So it's a shilling for a shilling. Thirdly, there's an interest that you will get out of pulling these resources together. Fourthly, you can access your money after 7 years. To me, and looking at it as an expert, and as someone who has struggled for 30 years to try and getting the housing agenda off the road, it makes perfect sense. If you understand it from the point of view that it is a mandatory contribution.
So it's a contributory scheme, like
a contributory scheme.
NSSF.
Actually, it is very much like a provident fund. But I think because of the nature of our politics and because of the nature of the labor unions, the government saw it fit to bring it under the finance bill for obvious reasons, that it can easily be passed. But also, reading through the intention, and please allow me to speak as an expert.
You are speaking as an expert here. We have allowed you from the beginning.
This money will not go to the treasury. It will go to what we call custodian banks. Already, through a procurement process, 3 banks have been identified. One of the banks is KCB, there's Cooperative Bank, there's NCBA. Once this money is raised, it is put in these custodian banks, who will only invest it in the money market. That means T-bills or any other money instruments. Secondly, we are going to have an administrator. And in this case, and through a procurement process, Britam was picked. And thirdly, we're going to have a fund manager.
Why do we have 3 banks and only 1 insurance company? Why don't we have 3 insurance companies?
I think that is something we can debate about. But you see, this came as a result of a procurement process.
Okay. So the administrator, 1 administrator, 3 custodians, and the final one?
A fund manager.
The fund manager is how many?
So far, there's 1.
Okay.
But I must add that I know this was done last year, and I know their terms are coming to an end. So I think the government will open up
fresh round
and ask for fresh bids.
Okay.
And having worked in, if you worked in private sector like here, your pensions are obviously administered by an administrator.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same model. What people fear, one is that they suspect that if the money goes through National Treasury, it may be misused,
yes,
which is a legitimate concern,
yes,
based on our previous history and our experiences. Secondly, people ask, I already have a house. Why should I contribute a further 3%? But the answer is this. This is a mandatory contribution. And the idea is to create a pool of resources which can be used deliberately to have major projects undertaken in housing so that the common man can access decent housing. The housing agenda has been on the cards for very long in this country. In fact, I remember, and allow me to tell you this, in the year 1995, the UN Habitat, together with the Ministry of Public Works, had a competition. And that the idea at that time was to try and have what we call prototypes for the slum upgrading project in Kibera. And in October 1995, in commemoration of the World Habitat Day, 3 entries were picked of the best prototypes. And I remember receiving a prize from Professor Jonathan Ngen, who was Minister of Public Works. And 30 years later...
You're one of the winning entries.
Yes.
For prototype for
slum upgrading. 30 years later, the discussion has just been a discussion. Uhuru Kenyatta's administration only managed to construct 9,900 units. This administration, if it achieves its intention of having 200,000 houses per year, will greatly be in league with other developed countries. And I always like looking at best practice. If you go to Singapore, and I'm happy that the Prime Minister of Singapore was here just last week. Singapore developed its housing pool by having mandatory contributions. In fact, they have something they call the CPF, the Central Provident Fund. And theirs is even worse because it ties housing to medical and to a monthly annuity once you retire.
Right.
I think this is a model that the government is trying to borrow.
So it ties them theirs to housing,
health after you retire, and a monthly pay.
So it basically combines NSSF.
It combines NSSF
and housing,
yes,
and NHIF into one.
And it has worked very well.
Yes, it
You're
has.
guaranteed of having a house.
Yes.
You're guaranteed of having a pension once you retire, and you're guaranteed of having lifelong medical cover.
Yes.
Don't ask about the governance issues in Kenya. That's a topic for another day. Ideally, it has worked very well in Singapore. And that's why today in Singapore, 92% of everyone in Singapore lives in a public housing or affordable housing or a social housing. In Thailand, it has worked very well. In fact, Thailand is even better than Singapore because the average income in Thailand is much lower. But through a similar system, 80.5% of the population of Thailand live in affordable or social housing. Why can't it work in Kenya?
We know why.
Why, City?
But anyway, that aside, I listened to the president's interview, and there's another dimension that he brought. That even in so doing, this money will be used to spur local industry and engage the 6 million or so people
unemployed
in
youth.
some kind of income generating activity. And that is what we should look at as a country.
Forgive me. Every time what you've just said is said, unfortunately, I have to comment. For how long are we going to be told this same thing over and over and over? The Uhuru government told us this. This new government has come in, they're telling us the same thing. And you do not see signs of it happening. Money is spent, yes. And if the money is spent, it ought to spur the very things that you're saying. But we do not see it.
I think you have a point, and I agree with you. Our historical experience may give us a bias against this objective. But if it is well executed, and I've told you, there are signs and there are signs that it's going to be well executed by delinking the custodian of the funds from the administration, from the execution. Those are good signs already. That if governance structures are put in place, this will work. And don't forget, we are there to oversight this government and to tell it where it goes wrong. And we don't shy about that.
Please forgive me, but the house you belong to, you are a first-term MP. Their reputation is, in these matters of oversight, are horrible. Because the very debts we're grappling with here wouldn't be where it is if they hadn't increased our debt ceiling. The very things we keep talking about, we'll talk around it, we'll go back to oversight, and we'll find oversight was not provided adequately.
I think even you as a media have a role to do oversight.
We do.
And you do it very well. So we combine forces. I'll be in that house as a professional. You will play your role as the media. And I'm sure with our concerted efforts,
we can get it done.
We'll get it done.
I want to ask a question, because you've basically said this is going to be managed like a provident fund, like some of these other funds, like NSSF. Best way to mirror it is with NSSF. NSSF, the money is there, but then there are people who are managing the funds, right? They have a fund manager, they have admin, they have custodian banks, and they are in all those things. But then there's a board. There's a corporate management structure for NSSF that has a board that has representatives of the people who are contributing to this scheme. The employers and employees sit in the board of NSSF. Is it the same for the housing fund?
Good question. NSSF by nature has a very, organized structure. But don't forget that NSSF is employer driven. That is why we have the employers sitting on the board of NSSF. And I think the challenge has been because of the Retirement Benefit Act, which puts ceilings on amounts to be expended in the, real estate sector. Now, the new housing fund doesn't have those structures. But then, there are regulations that were developed in 2018, which broadly explain how these funds will be administered. And these regulations were done through broad public participation. At that time, I remember I was in the sector, squarely in the sector, and we participated in making these regulations. Now, what has become a challenge is that even if the Housing Development Fund is alive, it has been voluntary. And so the savings are very low. In fact, we are talking of just about 2 billion shillings.
So far.
If this becomes mandatory, this amount will go to 9 billion shillings a month. And that will be adequate enough to do 50,000 houses every month.
Back to my question. What's the management and governance structure of the Housing Development Fund?
Well, so far, this will be administered by the National Housing Corporation. If you read the Housing Act, which
that is government alone.
Yes.
Okay.
But then there's room for improvement. Let me put that way. And because of the
should the first thing not be
had,
this? Because just the same way you're saying, in everything where employer-employee are contributing, NSSF, NHIF, the employer-employee is represented in the structure. There's broad representation in the board of NSSF. There's broad representation in the board of NHIF. Should it not be the same for the housing fund? When you say it's just the National Housing Corporation that's in charge of this fund, you're basically saying it's a ministry of Housing, the State Department for Housing, that's in charge of the fund. Now,
obviously, Eric,
open it up for transparency's sake, because I'm contributing to it, and it's not a tax, it's my contribution. Let my representative sit on that board.
Agreed. And that is where we're having public participation going on. And those are some of the comments that we hope will be integrated into the new management structure of the fund. I think we should not lose sight of the fact that
it can't happen with public participation for the finance bill.
I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that the intention of the fund is to create a pool of resources so that our people can access affordable and decent housing. That should be the basic. Anything else can be built around that. And I believe that these are structures we can put in place.
My question always is, because honestly, I see, when I hear you, when I hear P.S. Hinga explaining it, I get it. I see what you're talking about. You're creating a pool here, then this pool will be used to help spur that accelerated housing development. The PPP, the private contractor, can come in here and borrow. Also is guaranteed offtake, because then the fund can purchase many of the units, and then the contributors will be paying for a longer period of time. All those things are clear. My question always is, why the rush? Because all those things we are talking about, in 2018, when you were discussing these matters, I'm sure you and other stakeholders raised various issues and concerns, and you put in a lot of input into this. Why come up with a rush? First time it was taken to court because of lack of sufficient public participation. And the workers that went to court, the employers that went to court, the Consumer Federation that went to court, were all arguing about, you have not engaged us adequately for this. This time, is there sufficient engagement with the public before we say, let's kick it off?
Obviously, Eric, from my discussions with my constituents and others, there hasn't been sufficient participation or even information with the public. That is guaranteed. But do we kill a scheme just because of that? Or do we work out to improve it? And my answer is, we need to improve it. And there's time for that. In fact, this can be brought as a separate legislation. But then, we may end up again with the same bureaucratic processes. We may create a monster, just like the NSSF, where we cannot even have access to those funds once we create that monster. Sometimes, and you need to read the book by Lee Kuan Yew, the first Prime Minister of Singapore. Sometimes the leader has to make a decision. If you start doing processes and having boards, we will be back to the same issue again.
I almost hear you saying that if you include people in this participation, Mheshimiwa, if you then say, okay, everybody give us a little bit of how you feel about this, that essentially the process will then become muddied and it'll take too long, as opposed to just getting the thing done without participation,
analysis
which
paralysis.
The Constitution guarantees.
I think it's a question of a chicken and egg. What comes first? I believe that the vision bearer sometimes needs room to execute his vision. And we need to give them benefit of doubt. I believe that the intention to develop decent housing overrides all the other aspects.
Everything else?
Most.
It's contained here. It's Article 43 of the Constitution says, everybody has a right to a decent, affordable house, blah, 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 plus a good environment in Article 42, plus, sanitation. All those things would be addressed if we actually had proper housing structures. And we all agree that we have properly organized estates and housing and living areas would be much better. Everybody agrees on that. The question is, why not sit down and design it and then roll it out? Why start with one bit and then say we shall fix it as we go?
I think that's a good food for thought, and as Parliament, I think it is incumbent upon us to sit and actually develop proper legislation. We hope that when that time comes, then the public will be satisfied.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa, one of the things you said at the beginning of this was that you felt that this particular part of the housing bit should not have been lumped together with finance bill. Why?
Exactly what you're talking about. Because once it has been lumped with the finance bill, then there's a misconception that it's a tax.
It's a taxation.
There's also a second misconception that it is being hurried because the finance bill has got timelines. But the third and most perspective is that had it been done separately, and I hope we shall do that, then there's adequate input from stakeholders to a level where people are satisfied that this product is truly reflective of our wishes.
It takes us there. Let's take a break. It's 8:30. The Honorable Dr. Architect Daniel Manduku is a Member of Parliament for Nyeri Masaba. He is a member of the Housing, Urban Planning and Public Works Committee of the National Assembly. He was the founding boss of the National Construction Authority. When it comes to matters of housing in this country, he understands them very well. He's in fact telling us, let's talk as an expert and then I shall then talk as a legislator. And you're then mixing those two. As we take a break, Mheshimiwa, there's something called chai. And here, we have to pay ile chai, tunapeana chai.
Oh.
Here. Tea Aziz Premium Tea, very, very good tea. So tell him about it.
Kurosoi South District.
I come from there.
So you know about the Kiptagich rolling tea estates?
Yeah. You know Kiptagich?
Yes.
This is where it's from.
That's
now
my
you
home.
you see? So tell me you've tasted this tea.
I have.
Tell us about the rolling lush green tea estates.
Well, I know the area very well. I have a home there. It is very well laid out. The first time I saw purple tea, actually, and I've had a chance to taste this. It's got a very good scent and taste, and they say that it is healthy in terms of it's got some health advantages.
Very good for your heart.
Some herbal concoction, and I think it's something that we need to test.
What is purple tea?
Purple tea is it actually grows not as green but as purple.
The tea leaves are
the
purple.
tea leaves are purple, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure have you seen purple cabbage? Same. Yes.
All right. Now, since you are a connoisseur of teas, we are going to bequeath you this tea.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm sure my wife will be very happy today.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have 3 different types of teas in there, so you have a choice.
I've tasted that also, lemon tea.
Lemon tea.
Very nice. And masala chai. This one I've not tasted.
Good.
So start with the masala.
I'll start with that.
Yes.
Good. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I think I should come more often.
That is the idea.
Time for that break. Back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Yolanda Mulo and DJ Absolute. When the gang is together, you know it's sugar and spice. Great vibes, conversations, a lot of humor. I like to say we don't give an F, we give 3 Fs.
You and I are in this relationship, so it is me to tell you who we are.
When you ask a chick, how many guys have you been with? She's like, including you. If it's fun, it's funky, it's fresh, you're definitely going to catch it here. I don't know what you do every day from 11 a.m. to 3 o'clock. If I were you, I'd tune in to Spice FM 94.4.
I want you on my team.
So does everybody else.
All right, so partly sunny conditions in Nairobi this morning at 16. We'll see highs of 24. It'll go to highs of 26 in a sunny Nakuru at 14. And at 16, it's sunny in Nyeri, highs of 24. And highs of 24 in a sunny Eldoret at 25. Mombasa is cloudy. And it's light rain showers in Malindi this morning at 25. Sunny at 23 in Kisumu and 21. And sunny in Kakamega. It's mostly sunny at 22 in Kampala. And we'll see sunny conditions at 26 in Dar es Salaam. At 6 degrees, temperatures lowering again in Johannesburg. It'll go to highs of 19, and it's mostly clear at 26 in Lagos. Mostly cloudy after the morning rain in Kinshasa. Highs of 31 and lows of 24.
Spice up your life.
Senior Kiserian Road today, and that's what's causing all of that traffic that you see then on Magadi Road. It was a bad one. Response vehicles have arrived, however, and everything seems to be under control. So the dregs of that traffic is what's still being dealt with at this point. So if you're wondering what happened coming off of Magadi Road, it's that accident. So please, if you can avoid the area, do so and use alternate routes for now. Gong Road would be one. If you come off of that area, if you're heading in that, use Gong Road to go the round way, is what folks are saying this morning. Okay. Also looking at heavy traffic still in other parts of the city. Kiambu Road is spilling beyond the Kiambu Road that you know, and now we're seeing traffic at DCI headquarters slowly inching towards Muthaiga Square. It's looking a little bit better on the Thika Superhighway, but still heavy as you're coming off the drift at Tutali. All right, looking at traffic coming off Ruaka Road, and it's joining with United Nations Avenue, and there's also heavy traffic coming off Kitisuru. Everybody joining then onto Limuru Road and into the CBD. Heavy coming off of James Gishore. It's spilling through towards the Red Hill Link Road. Waiaki Way has quite some traffic this morning, and Lavington all the way in from Gitanga Road is moving very slowly into the city. All right, it's a Monday morning traffic. It's not letting up, not just yet. We'll see what happens in a short while. Talk to us on Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Are you ready? Okay. Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Conversation continues with the Honourable Dr. Architect Daniel Manduku, Member of Parliament for Nyeri Masaba, and an expert on these issues. We are talking about the Housing Development Fund, what's it for? And he says, from a professional point of view, it makes sense. And you participated in the thinking and creation of the Housing Development Fund at the very beginning in 2018. And you say, at that point it was voluntary, there was not much public awareness, so that's why it has only taken up only 2 billion shillings so far. But if you make it mandatory, then you are able to create a bigger pool. I think that's what the people have an issue with, the mandatory aspect of it. And the mandatory aspect, because of where the money is coming from, it's coming from the same income where everything else is coming from. You have a mandatory NSSF contribution that's gone up. You have a mandatory NHIF contribution that's going up. You have taxes that are going up. Then you introduce another mandatory 2,500 cap of housing fund that's going somewhere. And the whole thing here is this sort of future benefit that you shall see for it. I think if people are saying that you put in a housing fund today and next week you go and apply for a house, people may see it better. How do you sell this so that people can then see, okay, if you it's the same thing as NSSF. Put in money now so that when you retire, you shall go and queue at NSSF and get money and wait for money.
You don't die before you actually get your money.
Because people see it that way. If you look at all the arguments that are even on social media, even NHIF, people say, even this NHIF you've increased. But you go to hospital, you're told, NHIF haijalipa, so utaenda kutafuta hospital ingine. Now you're talking about housing fund. Where are the houses? We first build the fund, and then, those houses that the president is launching, they will be constructed, and then people are just saying, a long story. One. Something in the future, in this Kenya, future. How do you sell this?
We know the future. And what you're describing is not it. Yes.
Look at it this way. 2,500 shillings at a maximum cap per an employee. Consider how much money we spend on other things, non-essential, per month. Consider how much money we give to Harambes because of the broken down social system we live in. Mm-hmm. Either it's a funeral or it's a medical fundraiser.
Or school fees.
Mm. If you consider that this is your money that you're saving, and by the way, I sit on the committee for public debt, and you realize that we are suffering largely because we don't have a saving culture. The money that we borrow from China, Japan, are savings of those citizens. Now here, the government in its wisdom has brought a homegrown saving solution. And that is what we are essentially doing. We are saving the money for you. Because left alone, you will not save. And that is based on our historical, I don't know whether it's upbringing. We don't even save grain beyond the next season. Countries like China and the US have grain for 10 years. We are trying to inculcate a saving culture. This is your money. We are keeping it for you for 7 years in the housing fund. And you'll get it back with interest. On top of that, your employer will also match. The maximum that you can save under this scheme, or the maximum deductions that you can get, is 210,000 shillings. Now, when you start saving on day one, you can apply for a house. And you will get the house at 5% interest. Don't forget that when you pay interest, you also get a tax relief under the KRA Act. If you look at it broadly, it's a win-win situation. You save your money, you can get a house on day 1 or day 10 or whenever you want, and you can pass this benefit on to your kin.
Okay. Dr. You were the boss of National Housing.
National Construction.
Yeah, same thing. See?
Different things.
Same thing. I'll tell you why I'm saying it's the same thing. Because when you're head of National Construction Authority, that role we're talking about that Parliament has, that's what they had oversight. You make sure that everything that pertains to building codes, regulations, what have you, are done. And you can't have that if buildings are not being put up now. National Housing, yes, are the ones who used to put up these houses. Now, I can only take the view that the money was national government money to put up houses. And over the years, National Housing did an excellent job.
Correct.
The only problem was many of these houses were then left to the municipalities, local authority, to sort of like superintend and collect money.
Correct.
Some of those issues pertaining to what is owed have not been resolved to date.
A small correction.
Correct me.
As we are talking now, the National Housing Corporation took over most of the houses. There were very many outstanding debts arising out of the defunct municipal councils and city councils.
Yes.
The National Housing Corporation has been compensated, adequately compensated, through land. They have done what we call a debt swap. I owe you X shillings, I give you X acres. And this is a land pool that we have, that we are going to do these developments on.
So essentially all the debt that was owed by the former municipalities have now been settled.
Yes, if you go to estates like Makasembo in Kisumu,
yes,
they now belong to National Housing Corporation. If you go to other estates, even in Nairobi, Mariakani, all those have come back to National Housing Corporation from the defunct city council. So there's progress.
Now this makes my assertion even better, because if that is the case, and we have seen buildings being put up by National Housing, even in this city, Park Road, where we've seen it now. Some are bought, we assume some are rented. So you build, you sell, isn't it?
Correct.
So you get a little more money than what you actually spent, isn't it?
Correct.
Somewhere along the line. So it means National Housing has some money.
National Housing, correct, has some money, but then it cannot undertake projects to the scale that is intended.
I agree completely.
And with this kind of very, very big and aggressive housing program, you cannot finance this off balance sheet. You must get a different housing pool. You cannot have budgetary allocation to do 200,000 houses a year.
Correct.
So and that is why there must be an alternative funding model. And then, once you get the tenants occupying the houses, through the tenant purchase scheme, where you pay rent in a rent to own model, you are guaranteed of offtake. Because then, people will be paying as little rent as 2,500, 5,000, maximum 15,000. With this rent, you have a house, and you're paying back the cost of owning the house,
constructing it.
and a small interest of 5%, which will eventually be passed on to those who have pooled their resources.
So the interest is basically payable to the fund.
Yes,
Right.
that is the intention. You get your 5% interest, your employer matches with your 210,000. When you walk out of the fund, you have more than doubled your money.
So do I hear you to be saying that you don't need to save for 6 months in order to apply?
No, you don't need to.
As
In
soon
fact,
as-
you don't even have to save anything. You can apply today, and you are put on the queue. And we hope and we pray that it will also be a transparent process.
No. Let's take no. Do I tell you? Queue. People who are eligible, let's say there are 1 million, and they're in the queue. But for this thing to be effected, it means that there has to be a process that guarantees a certain amount of money is actually collected before these things can be effected. Is that not so?
That's correct. And that is why, from our estimate, with 9 billion shillings a month, we can start the construction of at least 100,000 units immediately. Because in a year, we expect to collect at least 100 billion shillings. So if you do a quick math, 100 billion divided by roughly 1.52 million shillings per house.
So where does now the PPP come in? How then do you integrate the developers who come in as private contributors to this process?
Good question. There are many delivery models. The first model is what the traditional National Housing Corporation does. They take their land, they do the designs, they give what we call horizontal infrastructure, and then they sell these units to tenants.
Yeah.
The second model is where we have PPP partners who come and invest their money, and they're guaranteed two things. One, they're guaranteed offtake. Why? Because there's a housing pool.
Yeah.
All you have to do is to agree on the cost of the project, the delivery timelines, and once they give you the key, you pay them off. Hopefully they go to another site. Then you are left with allocating houses.
Yeah.
That is a second delivery model. The third delivery model is where everything is purely commercial, and unfortunately, that is what has been going on. And the statistics tell us that with that traditional model, we're only able to cater for 3% of the population. That means the strictly commercial model leaves out 97% of the
because of the
population.
pricing, because
of the pricing, the cost of land, cost of taxes.
Yes.
We must change the model so that we can have 97% of our people get access to housing.
The model just before this one makes sense, except for one thing. You want someone to build and complete the estates, and then you're paying him after.
You see, that
and
is
this is the
something.
government telling you they're going to pay you after.
That is something that happens, by the way. We have got what we call the build, operate, transfer.
Yeah.
We've got the build, finance, transfer. This is what we're talking about. You build, you finance, you transfer to us.
But there's a guarantee
There's a
that
guarantee.
it will be taken. It's basically saying
And you see, you have sight of the funds also. You know, you're in this country. You know that in that pool,
there's money
there's
that
100
can pay
billion.
this.
And all you're asking for is 2 billion. And you're sure that if you deliver your houses on 1st of June 2024, you have your money.
You sign off.
In fact, that is the best model.
Really? For whom?
Okay, so you've
For everybody, I think, City.
I seek to understand. You've talked about the fact that if people are saving, so we're saying the maximum that you'll be asked to put out is 2,500, right?
Per month, yes.
Per month. Now, you're also saying that look, after 7 years, you can get your money back.
Correct.
Where is this money coming from that you can get back? Because the assumption is that you have a certain number of people who are contributing. The pool then would be 9 billion shillings. This 9 billion shillings then would then afford the government the space to be able to put up some units.
Correct.
Isn't it?
Correct.
So then after each individual then would have saved 210,000 shillings over a period of time, what you've essentially put aside is 210,000. It is not sufficient for you to purchase a home. What happens then is that from what I understand, this 210,000 shillings essentially is this club membership. But if you're going to attend the club on Sunday, you must still pay for your lunch. Now, paying for your lunch, is this what now you will be paying your 5,000 every month in order for you to own this home?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Now, for those individuals who do not want a home but have saved, where is their money? This money that you say you can get back after 7 years, where is it coming from?
You see, your question is actually a very good question. But how do banks work? How do banks work? The assumption, there's a model in banking which assumes that not everyone will go to collect his money on the same day.
Yeah.
The subscription to this fund is continuous. You'll start
every
today.
month.
There's somebody giving money.
You'll come on year 7. Someone else will come tomorrow. He'll come on year 7, day 1.
Yes.
Another one will come next week. He'll come year 7, week 2. Same like the banking model.
Some will come on the year 9.
If we all went to the banks today and took our money, the banks will close. But it never happens.
Sure, but you're still building, isn't it?
Yes, but you see,
from the same pool, the building is happening, and people can get their money back.
And people are repaying.
People are repaying.
And more contributions.
There are more contributions. And then once this fund is structured very well, and it's working very well, we'll start getting what we call angel investors coming in and giving long-term credit at 0%. That happens. In China, for example, there are people who give loans at 0 interest.
And this is expected to happen all within this fund as well?
Obviously, once it is well administered and their governance structures put in place, you start attracting investors.
You do, Dr. You do, and everything you say can happen. But you see, the model you're speaking of strikes me more like the models that insurance companies have. But the reason why this one works, you see, you pay money, and they were told after a period of time, should something happen to you, for instance, depending on what you've taken, we will pay this percentage out, we'll do the other. When you have saved up to 3 years, you can borrow against this money. There are all these things that they bring into it. So it isn't just you're saving for the next 10 years and nothing happens in between. And then after those 10 years, then there's this lump sum.
I told you that this money, among other things, will be traded in the money market. So when you bring your 200,000 shillings,
yes,
it is obviously going to grow.
Yes, it will grow. But what else does it give me? Apart from just this interest that I'm waiting for the future, what else does it give me? You're saying a house. So I get an interest at a certain point in time. I can apply for a house. What else?
What else do you want?
Insurance. Yes, exactly.
You know,
that's the right question.
I think you're bringing in a new dimension, which is a good thing, really.
No.
Which is a good thing. And I told you when I started, in Singapore, the same funds give the same central provident fund gives you a house, sorts your health out, and also gives you a monthly payment once you retire. Those are things that we can build in.
But everything does not begin at the beginning.
No,
I agree that.
Just like our pension, CT.
Yes.
Right now, after very many years of having pension schemes in the country, the law now says, okay, so pension, you get a tax relief with pension, you can use pension for mortgage, you can use pension and this and the other. It's as it grows. I see an opportunity for it growing, for this thing growing, but all of us have got to have our eye on this ball constantly and thinking through it. Because there are several things that are happening, and I see this. So, number one, as you can see, Mheshimiwa, even as you talk to everybody, there's a lot of skepticism and lack of awareness and lack of understanding.
That's true.
Which is what I find fault with those who are advocating for this. You should have taken time to go through and explain this very well to people, so people can just see this is a fund and this is what it will do. But and like you said, Mheshimiwa, don't mix it with the finance bill, because you put it in there. There's a new tax called housing tax, and it just becomes an issue. Secondly, if we all see the benefit of the fund and what the fund can do, because we keep talking about who told you need a house, who told you you're paying rent somewhere, what if you converted that rent into everybody has a need for a house. There's nobody who will say today, you know what?
And even if you have a house, who says you can't need a second house?
Yeah, who said you do not want a second house, right? So the whole issue of who said I need a house is basically a pushback of unataka kuchukua pesa yangu.
Correct.
And I'm
already
not getting
suffering.
it. Yes.
Yeah.
If it was sold, we could all see the benefit. See, we are going to do this. Look at all that vast area of land in Eastlands. If we can convert that into better housing, and we have more people, and you get to own a house, you can rent to own, rent to live in, rent to rent out, whatever. You have a house that my housing fund gave me a house here. My housing fund gave me a house there. And then we continue. At that point, we start saying after 5 years, listen, this thing, we have contributed this much. What else do we get out of this? What else can we do with this fund?
Actually, Eric, your point is a valid one, but remember, the discussion wouldn't be taking place if the Retirement Benefits Authority didn't exist in its current form and hadn't innovated in the way it has. We now know that it can be done. So we don't have to wait 5 years. The pilot has been done. We've seen what can happen. You gave an answer to the solution. You gave a solution to this, to the question when you talked about Singapore. These benefits that I'm speaking of, you've already mentioned them. That's why I'm saying, why can't you? Your parliament, after all. Why can't you tie these benefits so that I know that it's not? I'm not just building a house.
I think it's a very good point, Eric, and you've put it very well. What I can say is that let us allow that these benefits be incremental in nature. Now now that we have experience from the RBA Act and other jurisdictions like Singapore and Thailand, we can inbuild this with time. And I want to say something. The actual work behind this fund was done purely by very experienced actuarists, people who've done actuarial science, people who have managed hedge funds, people who have done banking at another level. And so there's a lot of work that has gone behind the scenes. And all the things you're saying were actually considered. But for lack of a better word, it was called the housing fund. Should have been called housing pool or something. And I agree with you, the mistake that we seem to have made is to rush this too fast and put it in the finance bill so that it becomes suspicious. But the intention, and I'll tell you again, sitting as an expert, this is the only way to go as a country. Otherwise, we'll talk about housing, and we'll never move beyond the 3% that we cater for. Remember, at the census of 2019, we had 1,441 slums. In the census of 2009, we had 814 slums. In 10 years, we've doubled our slums.
Yeah.
Unless we do something, in the census of 2029, we'll have 3,000 slums. Is that what we want as a country?
No, we do not. But if we leave the trust issues aside, the benefits that the government promises its citizens in the future is something that we will not accept because we do not trust the government.
And even as you talk about that, so even if you put trust issues aside, put aside the politics, because we must also accept that this is heavily political, whichever way you want to look at it, and to say, if we're going to save Kenya from the housing crisis that it currently is experiencing, the people that you talk about, for example, who reside in these slums, how well do they understand this process? Do they understand anything about this at all? Instead of using public participation as a tick-the-box exercise tool, how about you use that as an awareness tool to tell people about exactly what it is? Because truth be told, sometimes we want to be, we want to give you pushback. But the truth of the matter is that if this thing is explained to people, there could be some who would jump onto, your side of the tracks. But it's not being explained to folks. Somebody who is struggling to live, right?
That I agree.
And would get a house in the future that could be of benefit to them is not understanding this process. And we don't see effort being made for them to understand it.
So I think from where I sit, I will actually tell the Minister for Housing that there needs to be adequate dissemination of information to the public, because that is what is lacking.
Yeah.
And I hope that he'll pick the cue and tell his officers to ensure that the whole country is well informed about this whole fund.
And bring people who understand this. Keep the politicians away. Those people who designed it, can they be the ones that come to sell it to us?
That's a very
the
good,
actuaries,
that's a very
the architects such as yourselves. They should be the ones who are telling us. Bringing a politician.
But I'm a politician.
Okay, not your kind of politician.
They wanted to change the money. Nobody in Kenya was asking why, how. We understood it clearly from the beginning to the end why they were changing money.
Because it was a central bank and its officials doing
and
it.
You saw them
if
coming
you had
out
brought in
talking.
politicians, say sasa tunabadilisha pesa. Pesa. Mimi nikupatia yangu.
Never.
Mheshimiwa, thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. It's always good to be here. And thank you for inviting me over and over again.
Keep coming.
Whenever you invite me, I'll always come.
Very good.
Thank you.
The Honorable Dr. Architect Daniel Manduku, MP Nyeri Masava, has been our guest. Keep it here. In the next hour, we talk to the new chairman of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, 9 a.m.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Matungu Member of Parliament Peter Oscar Nabolindo is asking Treasury CS Njuguna Ndung'u to come clean and declare that the government is broke following delay of salaries for civil servants. Speaking in Matungu, Nabolindo says the delay in the salaries of public employees as well as allocation of NGCDF and allocation of county governments is a clear sign that the government is bankrupt and there is need for Kenyans to be told. He has also raised concerns with the reduction of allocation for Ministry of Education in the financial year 2023-2024, saying that these will greatly affect the education sector in the country.
The Minister of Finance, they should come out clearly and declare this country to be bankrupt because they cannot fund CDF, they cannot pay salaries, they cannot pay members of parliament, they cannot pay parliamentary staff, they cannot pay public servants, and now the counties are closing down. If almost every sector pesa haikuji huko, inamaanisha serikali imefilisika, na ni vyema viongozi wa serikali wa declare kwamba hii serikali imefilisika. 22 billion zimekatwa kutoka kwa upande wa elimu, na hiyo 22 billion shillings ni pesa nyingi sana, ambapo ikipunguzwa itaathiri sana elimu ya mtoto maskini.
However, Senator Boni Khalwali has emphasized that the government is not bankrupt but is facing the burden of debt from the previous administration.
Maisha ni ngumu, na wale ambao tulikuwa tunaminyana nao tukitafuta hii kura wanaichukua kama ni mzaha. Uhuru alikuwa amekopa pesa mingi sana, na kwa sababu Uhuru wako nje, tusipolipa hiyo deni, jamii ya ulimwengu itafunga njia zote za kufanya biashara na Kenya, na Kenya isipofanya biashara na jamii za ulimwengu, that will be end of the economy of Kenya. Mpango wa serikali hautolewi katika maandamano, hautolewi katika mazungumzo kwa matanga ama kwa rali. Mpango wa serikali wa kuinua uchumi unatolewa katika kitu inaitwa budget.
Kakamega County Deputy Governor Ayub Savula is asking President William Ruto and Azimio leader Raila Odinga to sit and hold talks on how the cost of living will be reduced. Savula says Kenyans are experiencing a difficult time due to the high cost of living, and this has been caused by the rising political temperatures in the country. He says that it will be good if the two cooperated to solve the issues facing Kenyans, especially the high price of living, citing the price of sugar and flour are high.
Nimeona William Samoei Ruto wamekaa na Raila. Mimi nimefurahi kabisa. Hawa viongozi wawili wakae pamoja wasuluhishe matatizo ya hii Kenya. Bei ya sukari leo 240 kilo moja, na kitambo kilo mbili ndio ilikuwanga 200 shilling. Hao jamaa wakae chini tusuluhishe. Huyu mwananchi ameumia na punda imechoka.
The Nairobi County government has pledged to provide a favorable working environment for content creators. According to Public Participation, Public and Citizen Engagement County Executive Suzanne Silantoi, these are young hustlers trying to earn a honest living and be able to put food on the table for their respective families. She expressed Governor Johnson Sakaja's commitment to fully support youth empowerment and youth trying to make a honest upkeep. She stressed that the county government will continue to partner with content creators to give them a friendly environment to create and innovate in their craft. Now, 8 people have been admitted to the Gatundu Level 5 hospital in Kiambu County after a cholera infection. The outbreak struck Juja area, which is said to be as a result of the consumption of contaminated water. The water is allegedly contaminated as a result of leakages on an ongoing project to expand the sewer lines in the area. Lucy Mumbi, a public health officer, confirmed the incident and encouraged the residents to practice and maintain high levels of hygiene to prevent further spread of the disease. For the field and sporadic fighting between Sudan's warring factions could be heard in the capital Khartoum after Saudi and US broke a deal for a week-long ceasefire raised hopes of a pause in the 5-week conflict. The deal, signed by the army and the rival paramilitary rapid support forces after talks in the city of Jeddah in Saudi, is due to come to effect today in the evening with an internationally supported monitoring mechanism. It also allows for the delivery of humanitarian aid. Repeated ceasefire announcements since the conflict started on April 15th have failed to stop the fighting, but the Jeddah deal marks the first time the sides have signed a truce agreement after negotiations. Analysts say it's unclear whether Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan or RSF Commander Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, known as Hemedti, are able to enforce a ceasefire on the ground. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Asseto. Good morning.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, still continues in many parts of the city. Ooh, look what's happening on Juja Road this morning. Heavy traffic. It's in and outbound, but me suspects it's just inbound traffic. It's heavy as you try to get into the city, and so watch out for that. It's trying to connect with Muranga Road. A lot of folks who took off from the Thika Superhighway and then tried to come round, unfortunately stuck on Juja Road this morning. Traffic still continues on the Thika Superhighway just past the Utali Drift. Actually, before that, past KCA. Kiambu Road also continues with traffic this morning. It's still busy on Limuru Road. We're starting to see this dwindling of traffic then coming off Magadi Road after that accident took place this morning. It was a tough one, so if you can stay away from that area, please do so. Into the CBDs where most of it's happening right now. Not too busy on Gong Road either. But we're looking at a little bit here and there onto the Eastern Bypass, and that's coming off of North Airport Road. All right, that's what it looks like for now. Let's see what happens in my half hour, and let's talk on Spice FM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
7 minutes
the
after
only
9.
way
How
to
you
start
doing?
your day.
Welcome to the final hour of The Situation Room this lovely Monday morning. It's a day that we begin by telling you about Centenary, what they've been doing, building houses and deciding, you know what, there are various projects that we have. We have projects that are going at the market that goes for above 10 million shillings. We are not playing in that market of 3 million to 10 million shillings as well. And we are saying, in fact, for that market of the 3 million and to 10 million, you know, it's very easy for you to own a home. If you go to your bank or your SACCO and you say, nyinyi muko na KMRC, they tell you, hiyo tuko nayo. KMRC say, I want a KMRC loan because I have gone to Two Rivers and I have found some beautiful apartments that they're building there. And you see, Two Rivers is just within Nairobi. I can live there and I can be going to work. And what I'll be doing is I will be paying my KMRC loan as I live in my house.
That's right.
So it's like converting my rent into home
ownership shares, kind of thing.
Yeah. It's as simple as that. And you see KMRC loans are 8% thereabouts. It's not like the other commercial loans, commercial mortgages, which are, of course, due 16% and going. and going and not being tamed. These ones are tamed at below 10%. So Centum Re are telling you, come to Two Rivers, see what we are building. You will enjoy it. You can send us an SMS. Send an SMS written Two Rivers and send it to 22365. We'll get back in touch with you. We'll give you more details and you can begin your home ownership. This morning we said from the very beginning, we are speaking with people who have chewed the book proper. From the beginning, 7 a.m. we had Dr. Alex Kamau. 8 a.m. we had Dr. Architect Daniel Manduku. 9 a.m. we have Bishop Dr. David Oginde, Chairman of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Good morning.
Morning, sir.
How are you doing? Now we have to call you Bishop Emeritus Dr. David Oginde. What do you say emeritus in Kiswahili? Askofu, mstaafu.
Mstaafu.
That's it.
I think so.
Okay.
Though staff is more retired.
It's retired, Bishop.
I don't know what emeritus should be because it's not just retired. It's mainly found within the academic circles and the monarchies and so on. Really to mean that you retired or finished your term with merit.
Yeah. So did you retire? Did you retire the position of bishop, or did you retire the position of bishop attached to a particular institution, church? Because if not, then we can still call you bishop now.
I actually didn't retire. I completed my term.
Your service, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, according just the way President Uhuru finished his term. He didn't retire.
We call him former president.
Former president.
So we can call him former bishop. Former general overseer.
So I finished my term as leader of CITAM, which I was leading.
Yes.
Bishop is a designation in the church hierarchy.
Yes.
So there's a sense in which you don't stop being a bishop.
Absolutely.
In that sense,
Karibu sana.
Yes, thank you.
Let's begin the conversation with the day's proverb. City is giving us proverbs this week from Djibouti.
Yes.
They're actually called Djiboutians. You were right.
The people of Djibouti, they're called Djiboutians.
Exactly.
I was just thinking.
Or en français, Djiboutien.
Yeah, we're calling them Djiboutis.
Sorry.
Well, so long as you understand what we're talking about. Okay.
It's not like you're saying Djibouti from Mauritania.
Djiboutians who might take offense, but yes, a guest who breaks the dishes of his host is not soon forgotten.
A guest who breaks the dishes of his host is not soon forgotten.
Meaning you'll be remembered.
Bishop, what do you make of this proverb? What do you think it means?
Well, I'm hearing it for the first time. I'm chewing it. But it means, I think what I'm hearing is that if you are bad-mannered in where you're visiting, you'll leave a bad reputation. I don't think this person is being remembered for good things. Every time they were looking for the plate, they say, oh, it was broken by Indo.
Yeah. Every time we see you, I remember my favorite dish.
Yes.
Or I see your child and I say, okay, it's your mother who broke my food. Came to visit her.
So it means that when you're visiting, you need to be careful.
Yeah.
Be well-mannered.
Leave a good reputation.
Leave a good reputation.
Right.
Yeah.
It's also in service. When you're serving as a bishop, when you're serving in public service, leave a good reputation.
Exactly.
So we don't say that person who was in this ministry.
Right.
What? You remember in the days of so and so. Hey.
That is when
things went south. How's it been now, serving as chairman of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission? How many months has it been now since you are sworn?
Months. I'm only 2 weeks old.
Does it feel like months?
It feels like years. Yeah, I got in at a time when there were several things that were happening. So really, I had to learn quickly and appreciate the role of the commission and what my role is in that commission. And so that has made it feel like a very long time. When I was looking back, I realized it's just about 2 weeks now since I got into office. But a lot has happened. I must say that it's a bittersweet experience. Sweet in the sense there are things that I didn't imagine were happening, that are happening. I've been very impressed by looking at the records of accomplishments of the Commission and some of the things that have been accomplished in the last few years, especially in the term of my predecessor. And my concern was, why wasn't this told to the public? Because even for me from outside, I didn't know that all this had happened. So that has been a very, very encouraging experience to know that actually the Commission is working and they are committed to doing what they are mandated to do. The bitter side is, again, looking at some of the files that we are dealing with, the particular issues that we are dealing with. And I remember in one meeting I left, by the time I left in the afternoon, I was like, oh Kenyans. We are so committed to evil. Just to see the kind of length that people go into to try and defraud our government of resources. It's very depressing. It's very depressing. And the kind of names you are seeing are people you respect, are people you see there and you feel, this is a person I would like to emulate. And then now these files come to your desk and you're dealing with them, and it gets very, very disappointing. So that is the bitter side of my short experience this far.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I'd like to come to some of the things that we saw you doing last week. But even before that, a broader, maybe a bit of a deeper conversation is that we seem to have seen men of the cloth, as it were, being given this position as the chair of the ACC, Wabukala before you, and then now you. Do you feel that there seems to be some kind of thought that if someone who is then, has been a moral leader, will then have maybe a foot in the door, as it were, when it comes to making sure that the ethics of the nation are kept in check?
I don't know whether it is by design that my predecessor was an archbishop and then bishop coming into that space. I don't know whether that is by design or by coincidence. Yeah, so I don't think that two incidences can really set the trend. So at this point, the other thing is, were we given or did we go? These are competitively advertised positions.
Sure.
In my case, there were 89 people who expressed interest. They were shortlisted to 14, then to 3, and then to 1. So in that process, I turned out to be the one picked on, and I happened to be a bishop.
Sure.
So if our religious background and spiritual background adds value, I would say yes, why not? Yeah, because this is what we as pastors in the religious sector preach about and campaign about. So given the opportunity now to actually be there, is a double-edged sword.
Because all those things you've been preaching,
now do it. Yes. So to me, that is my greatest fear and concern at the same time.
Okay.
Because we have stood for values, we have preached values, we have talked values, we have challenged people to walk in that space. So now you're given, and I was telling people that, when you're watching soccer, you can see the many chances that the players have missed in the field.
Yeah.
Until you get in there and you don't even see the ball.
Right. So let's see, last week you did see the ball and you presented a dossier to the CS, Ministry of Health.
Yes.
Madam Nahumisha. And you basically delivered a very, very scary state of affairs in the sense that in her ministry, it seems that quite a number of money has been lost, is being lost, and the situation is very dire.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about that, first of all?
Like I said, those are some of the very sad things that I'm realizing as I get into this office. First of all, just to mention that this report was not done yesterday. This study was done both before Madam CS and before my time. But it is now our turn and our time that this report has come out. As we mentioned in the report, the health sector has been rated severally, not once, as the second most corrupt sector in Kenya.
After
the police.
Oh, okay. So they're competing for this particular
They are competing for this position. So this is over and over again. So the purpose and objective of this study was not to show how bad they are, but to try and find out which are the weak areas and what can be done to tighten that. So the objective was a more positive objective than negative. It is not an indictment. It is you going to the doctor and say, I want a medical checkup. And then the results come out and they're not good. You're told your heart is not in very good condition, your blood pressure is not doing very well, your sugar levels are,
You're on the table and my God, you're on the table and we need the paddles.
Exactly. So it in the report itself is bad, but what the doctor will be telling you is not go home and die. Is that here are things that we can do to mitigate the challenges that you are facing. So what we are trying to help the health ministry to do is to look at some of these weak areas and see what they can do. And I was personally very, very encouraged by the CS response, because she was sitting there as we were giving this report, and I didn't know how she was going to react. I spoke before her, and I mentioned that actually what we are giving you is a medical report, because they're in the medical sector. So what you do with this report is what will be important. And when she stood up and spoke, I was very encouraged because she took it positively. She said, we are going to do something about it. We are going to act on this. And she even gave her own experience of what she has already experienced in the short time that she had been in office. We just confirmed that this was a problem that really indeed we were facing. And so if you may have followed my vetting process at Parliament, one of the things I said was my hope is that we as a commission could work together with various sectors of government and society to try and reduce this thing called corruption, change the mindset of the people. And through that, my thought was that we need to get some champions, people who believe that Kenya can change and should change, and they are in position of responsibility. The two leaders have met this far since I came in have proved to be those kinds of people. My first public engagement was with the Chief Justice, where we were also giving them an almost similar report but slightly different, because in that one they actually invited us to do a study and show them where the weak points. And so we gave them a report almost similar, saying these are the areas we have found to be areas of weaknesses and so on. And her response too was very positive. She said, we want to take this seriously. We want to go and work on it and come back and do a second check.
But as Kofu,
yes,
you know, when such people in such offices say, yeah, we take this, we are going to do it. You know, I know of course, because you're a bishop, you always look at the glass as half full and positive and,
Yes.
But the reality is, this CS saying, yeah, we are going to do this and we are going to fix the problem, is exactly the words that we've heard from her three previous predecessors. Senator Mutahi Kagwe said, this house here, this one
behind him,
this is a den of corruption and I'm going to deal with them. We know what happened. Cecily Kariuki had said the same thing. Dr. Milo had said the same thing. Here, we are going to sort out corruption. From what you have seen from the technical team that looked at the systems and the issues, the systemic and other issues that are in that ministry, what needs to happen to actually make not even the CS unable to stop the process of fixing the gaps in the ministry?
Very good question. I have looked briefly at some of the countries that have dealt with corruption in a more positive way and achieved something. Singapore is at the top. When I read the story of Singapore, their corruption levels were worse than ours. Literally, they were worse than. If you have read Lee Kuan Yew's story, by the time he came in, their corruption level, I was reading, and I was saying, we are not that bad. Things were really bad. But he came in with a determination to turn things around. And he did. Now Singapore is one of the least corrupt countries in the world. It's a benchmark for many countries around the world on how to grow an economy, how to do many things. There was that determination. And he says in his recommendations, if a country wants to get into that route, is political will at the highest level. I would say that when I came in, my hope and my prayer is that we would get the support from the highest level of leadership in this country. We have just got that commitment from the president, not just in word, but also in action. And this gives impetus to us who have been charged with the responsibility of systematically looking at the issue of corruption in this country. But I believe more than that, it gives impetus to people like CS Wafula to deal with corruption in her ministry. So what I think the president has done for his people is that now they lack excuse. Because when there is no political will, you may really be willing and determined to deal with these issues. But there's a lot of political connection with mega corruption. And unless that goodwill is there, you can make noise and jump here and there and you'll be undercut. But I think right now, I believe the president is committed.
There's goodwill. You can sense the goodwill.
There's goodwill.
But is there anything more that needs to accompany that goodwill? I'll give you examples.
Yes.
When Mzee Moi was appointing Harold Mwau into KACC, that was a public demonstration of goodwill, wasn't it?
Right.
And you were saying, I'm establishing a new thing here, and I'm bringing a sharpshooter cop, farmer cop. Very well known to be the head of this thing.
Yes.
We know how that went.
Right.
When Kibaki, sitting on a wheelchair at Uhuru Park, was delivering his maiden speech to the country as the new president, he said, things are going to be different. Those who are enjoying corruption in the past, your days are not just numbered, they are over, right?
Yeah.
We know how that went. He even brought in somebody to the level of PS and told that person, you're not going to sit in Harambee House, you will be sitting here in State House next to me, and you will be the one who is my eye and ear on corruption and how we can fight corruption. We saw how that went. Uhuru Kenyatta even went to Parliament and said, Mr. Speaker, on public record, I will leave a report here that there are people who have been told by EACC they are being investigated and I want them out of my government forthwith. CSs, PSs, left government, people were arrested. We have seen. So now, President Ruto, he has done what he has done.
Yes.
Is there anything more that needs to happen? Because clearly, just the words and that demonstration of goodwill is not enough.
The other thing that I believe we must work on, and again, I mentioned this during my interview, we have to work on culture change. That is something we cannot run away from. Again, if you look at the success stories around the world, it is culture change. And culture change is not at leadership level. Culture change is at public level. You and I have to get to that place. Even the way you are asking your questions, tell me you don't believe that this can happen, because we have seen trends in the past.
Yes.
We are in a situation where when a Kenyan goes to get service from any place and they don't pay anything, they get surprised.
Shock.
They come, I went for my passport and I just got it. What did you expect? You should just get it. Because we have been cultured. We have got to that place where this thing has become part and parcel of us. That I expect that anything I do or any service I get from government particularly, I must somehow pay for it. So with that kind of mindset, you find that there are people who are getting into corruption without desiring to or wanting to, but just thinking this is how things are done. So when the presidents that you have mentioned take their actions, and there are people whose mindset have not been changed, they are hearing this, what is happening, they are seeing what is happening, but somehow they believe there is no other way. This is how we have to do things.
But sorry.
So I find that really undermines every kind of effort that we put in. So as a commission, one of the things we really want to work on, and we would want to call upon the media particularly, because you are very well placed to amplify our voice and our efforts, is to embark on a major campaign that will help Kenyans to begin to think differently. You and I know that when people serve in government, you have served 5 years in parliament, or you have served 5 years in government position, or 10 years and so on.
Yeah.
And you don't have anything back at home, a big house, apartment blocks, and those people ask, what happened? Your colleagues who have served in similar positions have done this, have done that. So there's that pressure that then comes upon you that you also need to do something. That mindset has to change for us to be able to get into a place where somebody can go into government, give their service, go back and retire emeritus.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the situation. Bishop Emeritus Dr. David Oginde is the chairman of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. We are talking about the work of the EACC and what they should be doing. But as we take a break, see that banner there for that tea and all those teas that are there: Assis, green tea, purple tea, hibiscus, tangawizi chai, black tea, masala chai, lemon tea. All this is premium tea from Kenya. Premium from Kiptagich Tea Estates.
Wow.
You know where Kiptagich is?
No.
Kuresoi South District.
Kuresoi South.
Kuresoi South. Okay.
Sprawling, lush, green tea estates, giving us the very best. Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Close your eyes. Imagine your unsecured personal loan application has been approved. Imagine all the things you can do and buy. Imagine all the life goals you can achieve. Now stop imagining. Talk to your employer to switch to I&M at Work and get access to Kenya's largest unsecured personal loan of up to 10 million shillings. Call 0719 088 000 today. I&M. Tunakujali.
All right, still looking at a little bit of traffic here and there into the city, but actually much better than it was about 2 hours ago. Still a bit heavy on the Thika Superhighway. It's more or less come to an end on Kiambu Road, and also looking at James Gishore, which has also cleared up quite some. Gong Road looking pretty good, and off Magadi Road now that's more or less cleared up, then coming out towards Bomas and then on Langata Road. So it shouldn't have much of an issue there at all. All right, Juja Road was a thing. It still looks like it will be for some time. And apart from that, we should be good. Still through the morning, let's talk on Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Business News, brought to you by I&M Bank. Get Kenya's largest unsecured personal loan of up to 10 million Kenya shillings from I&M Bank Kenya.
I'm Dennis Aseto. The Communications Authority of Kenya now says it has received confirmed reports of the return of the infamous Wangiri phone scam. Wangiri, a Chinese connotation of a single ring on a mobile user, originated from Japan and is used by swindlers to lure unsuspecting mobile users through mobile numbers illegally acquired by the swindlers from the dark web, which is usually a hidden part of the internet known for thriving on selling illegal goods and services. CA reports that the scam is designed to lure innocent and unsuspecting mobile phone users to return the urgent international calls, upon which they are unknowingly redirected to premium numbers, which ends up draining their credit. Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development CS Zakaria Njeru told the Senate committee that the Housing Fund is meant to help a majority of Kenyans own homes. The CS, who was accompanied by Principal Secretary Charles Hinga and senior staff, told the Senate Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing in Naivasha that many banks fear lending to risk-averse customers. The CS said mandatory deductions are aimed to create a long-term financing mechanisms for the Housing Fund. Now, faced with mounting pressure over planet heating pollution, Gulf Arab energy giants are turning to humble tech startups as they search for ways to remove emissions while keeping oil flowing. Oil producers have for years touted capturing carbon before it goes into the atmosphere as a potential global warming solution, against criticism from climate experts who say it risks distracting from the urgent goal of slashing fossil fuel pollution. With little investment and few projects in operation around the world so far, the technology is currently nowhere near the scale needed to make a difference to global emissions. Equity Afya is looking for a business development executive with a bachelor's degree in healthcare management, business administration with at least 3 years of working experience in a supervisory role. Suitable candidates are required to send their CVs and cover letter by the 1st of May 2023. Visit jobs.digga.co.ke for more information on these and other jobs. Digga Jobs, your credible and trusted jobs partner.
Business News is sponsored by I&M Bank. Are you an employer in Kenya? Switch to I&M at work today and sign up your employees to Kenya's largest unsecured personal loan today. Call 0719 088 000 today. I&M. Tunakujali.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
To the end of the hour. And Bishop Emeritus Dr. David Oginde, the new chairman of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, is our guest this morning. CT.
Yes, the bishop very correctly said that when you're talking about culture, you want to go to the very basic foundation of society, which is the individual, to do so. Now, the moment you start talking behavior change, you have to include a very small concept that is key in behavior change. It's called the concept of the role model and the purpose and the examples that leadership provides.
True.
You see, the human being is flawed. That we understand. The Kenyan human being is extremely flawed. Okay? So, how then do you get this flawed person to move away from the thinking, the mindset, to be able to embrace what they know to be true? Because they know it's to be true.
True.
Now, that even you as a bishop had difficulties doing. And you had a platform where people come to you and they know exactly what they're going to be told, and they're constantly being told to change. Yes. Now,
yes,
it's a secular world,
yes,
and the same values still need to be inculcated.
Yes. Culture change within any setup, whether it is family, it's an organization, or it's a nation. As you say, there's a strong place, very important place of role modeling. If a father is a drunkard and is telling his children not to drink, it doesn't work. It will take that particular individual child personal commitment that I'm not going to drink. Having seen my father as a bad role model, I'm not going to go that way. But if this father was not drinking himself, he can confidently say, you see, this is what I do, and I would like you to do that. So that is the same at institutional level, organizational level. If you are a CEO who is always coming to work late, and you are saying we want a culture of punctuality in this organization, it will not work. First, you won't even know who is coming late because you are late yourself. The same at national level. So when we are talking about this issue of corruption, and this is why I said that I was very, very encouraged by the step that the president has taken, because he went ahead to say, I'm going to deal with this thing myself.
I'll take personal responsibility.
Yeah. That sends a very strong message to the nation. Now, of course, as you say, people then want to see how does that work out, not just the president himself, but in the government as a whole, especially at the senior leadership. And again, we have seen very good demonstration by the CS Health of what she intends to do. If this is picked up by several people at top leadership level, it brings that role modeling that you are asking about. We at EACC, our desire and our commitment is to try and raise up those kinds of people, encourage them with whatever support we can, so that they can demonstrate to Kenyans that there's a different way of doing business in this country. By the way, this is not just for talks. If we were to get into that place where we have a corruption-free, or at least very low incidences of corruption, because I don't know that there is any nation in the world that is corruption-free, the transformation that is likely to come into this country, because Kenya, we are placed at a very, very strategic place in terms of even geographical location in the continent, in terms of the resources that we have. This country is endowed with so much, but a lot of it goes into waste and theft. And so when you hear teachers wanting salary increases and there's no money, when you hear of doctors demonstrating all the time because they are not properly paid and all this, what we don't do is to trace this back to corruption.
Yeah.
Because what would have cost us 100 shillings is costing us 400-500 shillings. So it means that the money that would have been available to pay our doctors, the money that would have been available to pay our teachers, the money that would have been available to pay all these things that we are talking about to do our roads, has been privatized by a few individuals. So really, we are looking for men and women who will take that stand and begin to demonstrate that Kenya can run differently. I believe that we are in a new dispensation, and we will be able to do this. I know my friend here is not very optimistic because of past experiences.
Bishop, he's not alone.
But we have to stop looking at the rearview mirror and let's focus on the road ahead. And let's begin to do things differently.
One of the mandates of the EACC, in addition to investigations and recommendation for prosecution of corrupt people, is the ethics side.
Yes.
And public awareness and sensitization.
Right.
Looking at even before you joined the EACC and what you were seeing publicly, do you think the EACC ought to do more? First, in public engagement and awareness, all those issues, like you've just given a very good example. When we see salaries and all these issues being delayed, we fail to connect the dot to corruption. How much better can EACC do in connecting those dots, and what does it need for that to happen?
Right. We are actually this week going to be spending time on developing our strategic plan. And one of the areas that is already coming up is in that area of public awareness, public education. Because like I said, even the achievements of EACC are not known in the general public. Yeah. And so from where you and I a few days ago were sitting, EACC is a useless entity that is not doing anything. You know, that's what you hear from people, because these activities were not known. But we want to change that. We want to engage better with media. We want to engage better with the public so that they can see the kind of things that are happening. But we also want to engage a lot with the public awareness of corrupt practices, the weak areas in our society, which are those, where are those, and what can we do about it. We want to engage with various stakeholders within government. Like I said again, we didn't just give a report to the health ministry and then we say now go and do. We want to actually journey with them in that work, so that we identify how things are going on. We want to do the same with judiciary. We want to do the same with parliament. We want to do with all these different sectors and make that known to the public. Because if you remember 2003, part of the success we enjoyed for a short period before things fell apart was public being aware of what is being done. Yeah. When Mishuki came out and said, you are going to ride in a matatu with a seatbelt, we laughed. You know, we said, I mean, it can't happen. Just the way you are laughing now.
It is Kenya.
This is Kenya, you know. But with consistent and constant appeal to the public to join him in this effort, people were willing to work for almost a week while this sector was being rectified. Education with George Saitoti, the construction of road with Honorable Raila, demolitions were taking place. When public begin to see this kind of things happening, there is something that positive that comes up in the hearts and minds of Kenyans. And this is what we want to do. We want to show positive efforts that are bearing fruit so that Kenyans can begin to see that this thing is possible. It can happen. And begin to change our mindset. And those people who insist on their corrupt ways, we are also holding the stick, as it were. Yeah.
What do you think then would be a physical manifestation of this thought? That we say, have a positive thought about the things that can happen. What would that be? We often speak, and I believe a couple of years ago, even that we had an officer of EACC on the show, and who said to us, you know what, we have seen that prosecutions and charges then stand as deterrents, right? So what would be a physical manifestation of this positive thought that you speak of, that we will start to see that we are gaining, you know? Because as far as we are concerned right now, if there's a race, corruption is winning the race. So if we're gaining on corruption, right, as you've said, what would be some of the things that we say, okay, yeah, there we go, there's a step we've taken, we're moving forward. Like you say, many things happening within the AACC that we don't see. What would be some of the things that we say, okay, actually, yeah. And then, you know, cynical people like Eric Latif will be able to say, okay, actually, yeah, sure.
Yeah, it can happen.
It can happen.
Yep. I was talking to part of our team, and they're saying, there's an international survey that is done every year on the incidences of corruption, perceptions of corruption by Transparency International. Kenya always ranks somewhere.
Up there.
We do well. We do very well in that ranking. And I was saying, one of our goals must be, how do we begin to move down? How do we begin to move down? So that if we were 141 last year, how can we aim at being 120 or 130 this year? How can we get to 80 the following year? How can we get to 70? You know? when these kind of things begin to happen, people know that something is happening. And that is an external examiner, where we will not be cooking them.
But Bishop,
the figures.
Bishop, how do you get people to have this deep desire to do right? Because we seem to have a deep desire to do wrong.
That's the nature of human being.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
So the deterrent.
The deterrent is what we are saying, that those people who are committed and are determined to pursue the way of corruption, then there has to be serious punishment for that.
You give the example of the former immediate late Prime Minister of Singapore.
Yes.
Whenever people talk about this gentleman, the one thing they don't mention is that he had a team who supported him.
Yes.
And
there were 6.
Yes, and they were as committed as he was.
Yes.
People talk of the Kibaki era and the successes, and they forget there was a team of people who were committed.
Right.
Now, in the absence of those people who are in Christian circles called pallbearers.
Yes.
People.
That's a bad one.
It is appropriate. In our instance, yes, Kenya.
Unless whatever is in the coffin
escorting you to death
is the corruption.
But that's what they are.
Yes.
Because, if you look at the pillars, the people who support the people who are in high authority within government,
yes,
that seems to be the role, because you would expect that they would stem this tide. But they're the ones who propagate it. It's like they fast forward it and they give it momentum.
Right.
So when I call them pallbearers, it's deliberate.
Right.
Yes. Now, how does one get to the point where it is understood that not only is this wrong, but that people can stand up and say, okay, you know something? The buck stops here. It's not going to move.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Let me say again, what you have said is exactly what we want to work on. We want to raise up people, not really raise up, identify, because I believe they are there. People who love this country, because it has to start with love. One of the things that I can say is that as Kenyans, many of us don't love this country. Those of us who have traveled a bit outside of this country, you get amazed just what a beautiful nation we have.
True.
How privileged we really are, and yet how committed we are to destroying it. We are just so totally determined to destroy it. There are people struggling out there with things that we overcame long time ago. So we want to identify men and women who are seriously in love with this nation and who have been given the responsibility by Kenyans to serve them in one role or another, particularly at senior level. And let's form that coalition of the positive, like ones you had, that can then say, we are going to deal with this thing called corruption, and we are going to transform and change it. I believe those people are there. They may not be many, but these are the people who will then bring the groundswell that can then begin to change this nation. When we refer to the 2003, as you say, we had men and women who each of them was doing their best in their sector. And that's what brought about the transformation until the unfortunate fallout within government. But imagine if that team had continued working with the same spirit, with the same pace and everything, this country would be flying, I don't know where. But we undermined it with politics.
Yes.
We undermined it ourselves. So is it possible to change it, to bring it back? I believe it is possible.
Yes, it is.
It is possible. It is possible to get people within the health sector, and I want to believe our CS, from what she has said, could be one such person. It is possible that we can get somebody in the police who will say, and we are praying that this will be the case, who will say, under my watch, the police is going to be transformed. Can we get a person in different sectors? If we get 3, 4, 5 people in these critical sectors of our country, it is going to be possible. And that is something that personally I want to work towards.
You see, all those things, like you're saying, they head back into chapter 6, right? Which is this aspiration that we as a country have said,
yes,
this is what we want to do.
Right.
Chapter 6 of our constitution, we shall define people who shall lead us and they shall have integrity.
And good moral.
Good moral standing in the society. Now, what role can EACC play to make sure that chapter 6, as was initially drafted by the drafters of our constitution, actually comes to pass even with the Leadership and Integrity Act? Because as you understand, Leadership and Integrity Act versus the vision of chapter 6, there are 2 countries in between. How can we bridge that gap under your leadership and stewardship?
Yes. The EACC, its mandate is actually to implement chapter 6 or help implement chapter 6 of the Constitution. That's what we have been mandated to do. Now, we can't do this on our own. We work in concert with other stakeholders to make this happen. And so we are engaging with different actors. For example, elections is one big thing in this country. And that is from where we appoint leaders. If we are able to work with IEBC, because EACC is required to submit and vet, as it were, people who want to run for public offices, we will give our report. If we can work with IEBC so that they take our reports seriously, that will begin to be a deterrent to certain individuals. But if EACC were to give their report, say, for example, again, as I say IEBC, and IEBC goes ahead and does their own thing, then you see there's a weak link there.
Totally.
But if we can all work together, and I'm just using IEBC as an example, I'm not saying that they do that.
That's precisely what they did.
That's what happened. That's what happened last year.
So what therefore we are saying is, if judiciary, IEBC, DCI, DPP, all these organs that have been charged with ensuring that we are living in a country of law and order, work together as a team, I think and I believe we can get there.
You spoke of political goodwill.
Yes.
And you're very positive about this.
Yes.
Now that you're still positive, how about approaching the political leadership and amend the Leadership and Integrity Act so that it mirrors Chapter 6 of the Constitution? Because the Leadership and Integrity Act, and has been said here many times, has been weakened in such a way that Chapter 6 cannot really be fully implemented because there's so many hoops to jump.
Right. It is true. One of the strategies and items that we are working on is legislative framework. And again, we want to engage with Parliament so that they can give us a legal framework that can actually ensure that we succeed in this journey. And our hope is that with this goodwill that we seem to be enjoying in this early stage of this government, if this legal framework is implemented or set in place, it will make it so much easier for us to achieve our goal and objective in fighting corruption in this country. Because unfortunately, there are people who want to undermine that framework so that it doesn't succeed. But we have consistently and constantly appealed to Parliament to make certain laws that make the work of EACC to be effective. And so this is an area that we are still pursuing, we want to pursue, and our hope is that new Parliament with the new leaders will have new ideas. I know we are skeptical, we are cynical.
Not always,
we
but
are
there's always a push.
but we can't give up. We can't give up.
Do you have a lobbying strategy within EACE?
Yes, we do. We're actually not calling it lobbying because lobbying sounds a bit like begging. We are talking about engagement. So when you hear me talking about engaging, when we say we want to engage Parliament, we want to engage this, we are basically saying what you are saying.
It's the deployment of the same strategy.
So, because engagement is that I want to hear you where you are.
Yeah.
And you want to hear me where I am. And we work together towards a mutually beneficial result. So rather than just come to try to persuade you as if you are not willing yourself. So we want to engage. What is it in Parliament, for example, with the legal framework? What is it that they can help us do? And from their point of view, what are the challenges that they see with certain laws that make it difficult for them to enact these laws? So then we can say, in this particular area, perhaps this is what we could do, and come up together with a framework that then works.
Asante Bishop for joining us.
Thank you.
It was an introduction. So today we were just hearing your thoughts.
Yes.
Next time you come, we engage. You'll be in office.
Thank you. You see, mindset change.
Already. Bishop Emeritus Dr. David Ogin, the chairman of the EACC, has been our guest. Thank you for tuning in. Kenya's biggest conversation. Back tomorrow morning, 10 a.m.
Retired President Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga and other Azimio leaders are expected to grace Jubilee Party's National Delegates Congress.